Deja vu. Deja vu is one of the most hauntingly strange experiences a human being can have, a fleeting, almost electric sensation that the moment you are living right now has already happened before. It can strike in the middle of a mundane conversation, while walking into a room for the first time, or even during an entirely new experience. Suddenly, everything feels eerily familiar, as though you've stepped into a scene you've already played out in some hidden part of your life. The air thickens, your awareness sharpens, and for a few seconds, reality feels slightly bent. Scientists suggest that deja vu is the brain's memory system misfiring, processing the present moment as if it were a memory. Some believe it's caused by a glitch between short-term and long-term memory storage, where the brain mistakenly files new information into the already happened folder. Others suspect it may be tied to a brief lag between the brain's hemispheres, causing perception and memory to overlap. But for many, those explanations feel too neat for something so unsettlingly profound. There's an emotional weight to deja vu that logic can't erase. It can leave you wondering if time is looping in tiny, invisible ways, or if you've brushed against a version of yourself in another reality. In that brief, ghostly overlap of now and before, you feel tethered to something bigger, something hidden, like a faint echo from a life you can't quite remember living. Some people are left shaken, their thoughts spinning long after the feeling fades, replaying the moment in their minds as if searching for a clue. It's as if the universe briefly let you peek through a crack in its surface, only to seal it before you could see what was really there. Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect is a deeply unsettling phenomenon where countless people share the same vivid memory of something that, according to all evidence, never actually happened. It's named after the wave of shock that swept across the world when many swore Nelson Mandela had died in prison during the 1980s, years before his actual death in 2013. The certainty wasn't casual. People remembered news broadcasts, funeral coverage, even conversations about his passing. And yet, history proved them wrong. Since then, countless examples have emerged. People remember the Berenstain Bears as the Berenstein Bears. They swear the Monopoly Man wears a monocle, that the Fruit of the Loom logo once had a cornucopia, that Darth Vader famously said, "Luke, I am your father," when the actual line is different. The strangest part isn't just one person misremembering, it's thousands, even millions, holding the exact same false memory with eerie confidence. Psychologists often explain it as a fault in the brain's reconstructive memory process. Our minds don't record events like a video. Instead, they rebuild them each time we recall them, leaving room for distortions. Mass exposure to altered information through media, conversation, or the internet can cause these distortions to spread like a virus until entire groups of people remember something that never existed. But for some, the scientific explanation feels like a half-truth. They can't shake the suspicion that these memory errors might be the fingerprints of something stranger, alternate timelines bleeding into each other, tiny fractures in the reality we trust without question. It's in these moments, when memory and fact no longer align, that the world feels unstable, as if reality itself is just a fragile construct we've agreed to believe in. And if it can shift once, what's stopping it from shifting again? Missing time. Missing time is one of the most disorienting and unnerving glitches in human experience, a stretch of minutes, hours, or even days that vanish from your memory as if reality itself skipped forward without your consent. It often begins innocently. You glance at a clock, carry on with whatever you're doing, and the next time you check, far more time has passed than feels possible. The realization doesn't just confuse you, it chills you. Where did that time go? For some, it happens during routine activities, like driving a familiar route and suddenly waking up miles ahead with no recollection of the journey. Others recall being deep in thought one moment and inexplicably finding themselves in a completely different location or situation the next. People describe it as a mental blackout, a blank stretch where memory simply does not exist, leaving nothing to piece together, just an eerie void. Psychologists often connect it to dissociation, stress, or hyperfocus, where the brain tunes out conscious awareness to conserve resources. Neurologists might point to temporal lobe activity, mini-seizures, or even microsleep episodes, but these explanations don't always fit, especially in cases where the person feels a sharp, almost supernatural disconnection from reality, as if they were gone in more than just mind. The emotional impact is what makes missing time so haunting. It can leave you with the unsettling suspicion that something happened while you weren't there to witness it, something you were not meant to remember. For some, it feels like waking up from a dream you can't recall, only to find the world around you slightly off. It lingers, gnawing at you, because it isn't just the time that's missing. It's a piece of your life that slipped away without a trace. Sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is the terrifying space between waking and dreaming, where your mind is alert but your body refuses to move. You open your eyes, aware of your surroundings, but a crushing weight pins you down. No matter how much you will your arms or legs to respond, they remain frozen, as if your body belongs to someone or something else. Breathing feels shallow, your chest heavy, and an ancient panic floods your veins. In this suspended state, the room doesn't feel quite right. Shadows seem to shift in the corners. A presence, sometimes faint, sometimes overwhelming, fills the air, pressing closer. Many describe the sensation of someone standing beside the bed, watching. Others see full-blown figures, shadowy silhouettes, faceless intruders, even inhuman shapes crouch over them. The hallucinations feel vivid and real, a blend of dream imagery and waking perception that traps you between worlds. Science calls it a disruption of REM sleep. Normally, your body is paralyzed during dreams to prevent you from acting them out. Sleep paralysis occurs when your consciousness wakes before your body releases this paralysis, leaving you stranded in a nightmare your eyes can see, but your body can't escape. But knowing the cause doesn't make the experience any less harrowing. Many leave these episodes shaken for days, replaying the cold certainty that something else was in the room. Cultures around the world have their own names for it. The old hag in Newfoundland folklore, the kanashibari in Japan, the night demon in many others. No matter the name, it's an encounter that feels less like a malfunction of the mind and more like a forced glimpse into a darker, hidden layer of reality, one that does not want you to move. Doppelgangers. A doppelganger is more than just someone who vaguely resembles you. It is an uncanny twin that exists outside your family line, a mere image stranger walking somewhere in the world with your face. The idea alone is enough to stir something primal, as if identity itself could be duplicated without your knowledge or consent. For those who encounter one, the effect is deeply unsettling, a collision between the familiar and the alien. You might hear about them in passing. A friend swears they saw you in a place you've never been, doing things you never did. Sometimes it's a chance meeting on the street where your mind stalls, heart stuttering as you lock eyes with yourself. There's an instinctive, almost animal jolt of recognition, a whisper in your head saying, "That's me," but your logical mind screams that it's impossible. Throughout history, doppelgangers have been steeped in superstition. In folklore, they're seen as omens of misfortune, even death. In some tales, seeing your own double is a sign your life is about to take a sharp and irreversible turn. The eeriness stems not just from the resemblance, but from the unshakable sense that you are looking at more than flesh and bone, that this figure could be a shadow of you from another life, another timeline, or something wearing your likeness for reasons you cannot grasp. Modern explanations point to coincidences, genetic chance, or the sheer vastness of human diversity. But when you see a perfect copy of yourself, every line of your face, the exact curve of your mouth, logic feels flimsy. You can't help but feel the air grow heavy, as if reality has briefly revealed a fracture, and in that fracture, there's another you staring back. Phantom phone buzz. Phantom phone buzz is the eerie sensation that your phone has vibrated in your pocket or in your hand when it hasn't made a sound or moved at all. It's a split-second jolt that pulls your attention like a hook. The sudden awareness, the reflexive reach for your device, the quick flash of expectation, and then nothing. The screen is dark, no notifications, no calls, no reason for the buzz you were so certain you felt. It's so common that millions experience it regularly, yet it never stops feeling strange. Some scientists blame it on sensory habit loops, where the brain becomes so conditioned to the feeling of a vibration that it begins to misinterpret other sensations. Muscle twitches, shifting clothing, the brush of fabric against skin as incoming alerts. Others suggest it's tied to anxiety and anticipation, with the mind primed to expect digital contact at any moment, fabricating signals just to feed that constant readiness. But there's something almost haunting about how real it feels. The phantom buzz is tactile, convincing, and utterly precise, sometimes echoing the exact pattern your phone uses when a message arrives. It can happen when the phone isn't even on you. While you're sitting at a desk or lying in bed, the ghost of that vibration still ripples through your nerves. It speaks to how deeply our devices have fused with our sense of self, how their signals have become part of our inner language. That phantom pulse isn't just a glitch in your nervous system, it's a reminder that somewhere along the way, your brain rewired itself to feel absence as if it were presence, to mistake longing for contact as contact itself. Freudian slip. A Freudian slip is one of those unsettling moments when your own mouth betrays you, when a single misplaced word spills something far deeper than you intended to reveal. You might be in the middle of a casual conversation, speaking without a second thought, when suddenly a different word slips out, one that seems to echo an unspoken desire, a buried resentment, or a hidden truth you've never dared to say aloud. The air changes instantly. You hear it, they hear it, and for a split second, the truth feels exposed. Sigmund Freud believed these slips of the tongue were not accidents at all, but cracks in the facade, moments when the unconscious mind forces its way into the light. They often emerge in emotionally charged situations. A lover accidentally calls their partner by an ex's name. A politician says the opposite of what they meant. A friend blurts a truth they've been politely avoiding. These slips land with weight because they feel raw, unscripted, and unfiltered. Neurologists might explain them as simple cognitive errors, where similar words compete in your brain and the wrong one wins. But the sting of a Freudian slip isn't in the mechanics, it's in the meaning people attach to it. The human mind is quick to see hidden motives, to believe that the tongue stumbled because the heart was trying to speak. The most unsettling thing about a Freudian slip is that it feels like a loss of control over your own voice. It's as if your subconscious decided to take the microphone for a moment, bypassing the careful editor in your head. And whether it's truth, longing, or anger that slips through, you're left with the uneasy question: was that really an accident, or was it the most honest thing you've said all day? Optical illusions. Optical illusions are one of the most unnerving reminders that the world you see is not necessarily the world as it truly is. They are moments when your eyes, the organs you trust to interpret reality, betray you, presenting an image that feels clear and certain, yet is entirely deceptive. At first glance, you might see one thing, but look again and it transforms into something else entirely. A flat image appears to move, a straight line looks bent, two colors seem different, but are in fact the same. Your brain insists it is correct, even when proof says otherwise. These illusions work because your brain doesn't passively record information. It actively constructs it. In fractions of a second, it fills in gaps, makes predictions, and uses past experiences to interpret incoming visual data. Most of the time, these shortcuts help you navigate the world efficiently, but every so often, those same shortcuts turn against you, and the result is a strange, almost dizzying disconnect between what's real and what you perceive. Some illusions are simple tricks of light and perspective, while others burrow deeper, playing with your mind's very sense of space, depth, and motion. Stare long enough at certain patterns, and they seem to breathe, pulse, or shimmer, making you question if the world itself is shifting under your gaze. What makes optical illusions so unnerving isn't just the trick. They reveal how fragile and constructed your perception truly is. They are tiny cracks in the facade of reality, proof that what you think you're seeing is really just your brain's best guess. And if your mind can so easily be fooled by lines and colors, what else might it be wrong about without you ever realizing? False awakening. A false awakening is the unnerving experience of believing you've woken up only to realize later you're still trapped inside a dream. It begins with complete realism. You open your eyes, see your room bathed in familiar light, hear the faint hum of the outside world. You might even go about your morning routine, every detail so precise it erases any suspicion. Yet something feels slightly off. A clock showing the wrong time, a door that shouldn't be open, a sound that echoes unnaturally. Then comes the reveal, the sudden jarring discovery that you never woke up at all. You snap into another layer of reality, certain this time you're truly conscious, only to realize again you're still dreaming. The cycle can repeat multiple times, each awakening convincing, each collapse back into the truth more disorienting than the last. Some people describe feeling trapped in an endless loop, their panic mounting as they begin to wonder if they will ever wake for real. Scientists attribute false awakenings to REM sleep disturbances, where the brain simulates waking life so vividly that you can't distinguish it from consciousness. But knowing this doesn't dilute the dread. The emotional punch comes from how easily your mind can fabricate a reality perfect enough to deceive you, an invisible reminder that your sense of real is more fragile than you think. For those who've experienced it, the memory lingers. There's an uneasy aftertaste in waking life, a nagging thought in the back of the mind. What if I'm still in it? What if I never left? And in that whisper lies the most haunting part, that maybe we trust the act of waking far more than we should. Time dilation under stress. Time dilation under stress is the surreal slowing, or sometimes quickening, of moments when adrenaline floods your system. In extreme situations, seconds can feel like minutes, every detail around you snapping into razor-sharp focus. You might notice the way light bends through dust in the air, the sound of your heartbeat pounding in your ears, the micro-expressions on someone's face, all compressed into an impossible, stretched-out instant. It often happens in moments of danger, a near car accident, a sudden fall, an unexpected confrontation. Your body's fight or flight response kicks in, and your brain shifts into a hyper-processing mode. Neurologists believe this isn't time actually slowing, but your mind taking in so much more sensory information than usual that, when recalled, the moment feels longer than it was. Your perception rewrites the laws of time as you live them. For some, it's the opposite. Time speeds up, slipping through your fingers so quickly you can barely register what's happening. The danger is over in a blink, leaving you breathless and confused, wondering if you missed crucial moments. The emotional impact lingers long after the event. Those stretched seconds often carry a heightened clarity you can't shake, burned into memory with unnerving precision. Survivors of accidents or violence can recall exact movements, sounds, even smells, as if replaying a slow-motion recording. It's in those strange pockets of altered time that reality feels fragile, elastic, almost negotiable, and when the moment ends, you're left with the uneasy knowledge that time, the one thing you thought was constant, can warp around you, bending to the weight of fear. Bystander Effect. The bystander effect is a chilling psychological glitch that exposes the fragile threads holding human compassion together. It happens when a person is in urgent need of help, lying injured on a street, crying out in distress, or caught in a dangerous situation, and the people around them do nothing, not because they are cruel, but because they are frozen in the quiet, invisible grip of social paralysis. In that moment, each witness instinctively looks to the others for cues. If no one else is acting, the brain interprets that inaction as a signal. Maybe it's not that serious. Maybe someone else will step in. Maybe it isn't your place. Responsibility becomes diffused across the crowd, and the urgent call to act fades into a murmur, drowned by the collective silence. The larger the group, the stronger the paralysis, until tragedy plays out in plain sight. Psychologists trace this to fear of embarrassment, uncertainty, and the deep human instinct to follow the herd. No one wants to be the one who overreacts, who misjudges the moment, who breaks the social script. But for the person in need, those seconds of hesitation can be the thin line between survival and disaster. Stories of the bystander effect linger because they reveal something we don't like to admit, that empathy can vanish when it's most needed, replaced by an almost mechanical passivity. And when the spell finally breaks, when someone does step forward, others often follow, as if a hidden switch has been flipped. But the haunting question remains, if you had been there first, would you have moved or would you have watched? Change blindness. Change blindness is the deeply unsettling failure to notice major changes in your surroundings, even when they happen right in front of your eyes. You could be staring directly at a scene, a person's face, a busy street, a familiar room, and miss something so significant that, once revealed, it makes you question how much of reality you truly register. It's not about being distracted or looking away. It's about your brain actively filtering the world, hiding alterations it decides are unimportant until the truth is forced into your awareness. In experiments, researchers have swapped entire objects, altered people's clothing, or even replaced one person with another in the middle of a conversation, and the subject often fails to notice. The effect is so powerful that you can be looking straight at a detail and still not see it change. Your eyes capture far less than you think, and your brain fills in the rest, patching over reality like an overconfident editor. Change blindness works because the mind isn't wired to process every pixel of the world. Instead, it focuses on what it assumes matters most, discarding the rest as noise. But in doing so, it leaves you vulnerable to not noticing the very shifts that might change everything. An object going missing, a facial expression turning hostile, a person quietly being replaced. What makes it unnerving is the implication. If you can miss something huge in plain sight, how much of your daily reality might be slipping by unseen? It isn't just a quirk of perception. It's a reminder that your version of reality is far thinner, far more fragile than you'd ever want to believe. McGurk Effect. The McGurk Effect is a mind-bending reminder that what you hear isn't always what's real, because your eyes can rewrite your ears. Imagine watching someone say the word ba, but their lips are silently forming fa. Even if the sound in the audio never changes, your brain begins to hear fa, tricked by the sight of their mouth. It's not a glitch in your hearing, it's a deeper glitch in perception itself, where vision hijacks sound without your permission. This phenomenon reveals how fragile and manipulable our senses truly are. We like to think of them as separate streams of truth, each delivering reliable information about the world. But the McGurk Effect proves they're not separate at all. They're woven together, and when they conflict, your brain chooses the version that feels most convincing, even if it's wrong. What makes it unsettling is how irreversible it feels in the moment. Once the illusion clicks, you can't just force yourself to hear the correct sound again, no matter how hard you try. Even when you close your eyes to reset your perception, the memory of the lips moving can still haunt your hearing, bending it back to the false version. It's more than a quirky trick of neuroscience. It's a quiet, unnerving reminder that reality is not fixed, that the world you experience is a custom construction in your mind. If something as basic as a spoken word can be altered by what you see, then how much of what you believe to be certain is just another seamless, invisible illusion you've never thought to question? Jamais vu. Jamais vu is the unnerving twin of déjà vu, a mental glitch where something familiar suddenly feels alien, as if you've stepped into a world that looks like yours but isn't. You might be staring at a word you've written 1,000 times, repeating it aloud, when suddenly it stops making sense. The letters seem wrong, the sound strange, the meaning distant. Or you find yourself in a place you know well, your kitchen, your street, and for a few haunting seconds, it feels like somewhere you've never been before. It's not simple forgetfulness. It's a rupture in recognition, a sudden disconnection between what your eyes see and what your mind knows. Neurologists suspect it happens when the brain's familiarity circuit misfires, when the process that tags something as known briefly shuts down, leaving you to experience it raw without the comfort of recognition. Sometimes it's triggered by repetition. Say a word enough times and the brain's pattern breaks, revealing the strangeness beneath. But in the moment, it's far more than a quirk of memory. Jamais vu can feel like you've slipped into an almost parallel reality where the rules are subtly wrong. The room is the same, yet its energy feels off. The faces are the same, yet they seem distant, hollow. The ordinary world takes on a dreamlike unreality, and for a few breaths, you wonder if you've somehow stepped out of your own life. Then, just as abruptly, it's gone. The warmth of familiarity rushes back, but it leaves behind a faint unease, as if you've glimpsed the fragile scaffolding that holds your reality together, and realized it can fall away without warning. Earworm. An earworm is the strange, almost intrusive experience of having a song loop endlessly in your mind, often one you didn't choose and may not even like. It can start with something as simple as overhearing a snippet of a jingle in a store, a few seconds of a chorus on the radio, or even recalling a long-forgotten melody from childhood. Without warning, it lodges itself in your head, playing over and over with mechanical precision, as if your brain has become a broken record. The eerie part is how persistent it can be. You can distract yourself, focus on other tasks, even go to bed hoping it will fade. But the moment your mind wanders, there it is again, resurfacing like a ghost you can't exorcise. Some people describe it as a kind of mental itch, one that refuses to be scratched, while others feel it as a subtle but constant hum just below conscious thought. Scientists believe earworms are the result of your brain's auditory memory system latching onto a catchy rhythm or melody, creating a feedback loop. The brain craves completion, so when it recalls part of a song, it compulsively repeats it to finish the sequence, only to restart again. This is why simple, repetitive tunes are the worst offenders. But what makes earworms truly unsettling is how little control you have over them. They arrive uninvited, linger for hours or days, and sometimes bring with them emotions tied to when you first heard the song, nostalgia, longing, even sadness. In those moments, it's as if your own mind has turned into a jukebox you never asked to play, and you can't quite find the button to make it stop. Misattribution of memory. Misattribution of memory is a quiet but deeply unsettling flaw in the mind's most trusted faculty, the ability to remember. It happens when you recall a detail, a conversation, or even an entire event with absolute certainty, yet the source of that memory is wrong. You might swear you read something in a book when it was actually told to you by a friend, or insist you witnessed something firsthand when you only saw it in a film or heard it in passing. The most unnerving part is how convincing it feels. These memories don't arrive with question marks. They arrive with conviction. This phenomenon occurs because memory is not a perfect recording. Each time you recall an event, your brain reconstructs it from fragments, pulling pieces from various sources, your senses, emotions, past experiences, even other people's stories. In the process, details can be swapped, rearranged, or blended, and the brain doesn't flag these changes as false. Instead, it stitches them seamlessly into the fabric of your personal history. Sometimes the error is harmless, like crediting the wrong person for a joke. Other times, it becomes something far more disquieting, believing you were somewhere you never were, remembering people you never met, or being certain of events that simply never occurred. These misattributed memories can alter your understanding of your own life, twisting the narrative without your awareness. What makes it disturbing is the realization that your past, the foundation of who you are, is not as solid as you believe. If your mind can convincingly rewrite its own history, then the truth of what really happened might already be lost, replaced by something that feels real, but never was. Glitch in dreams. A glitch in dreams is that strange, jarring moment when the surreal logic of sleep fractures, when something inside the dream world stutters, repeats, or behaves in a way that feels wrong even by dream standards. You might be walking through a shifting landscape when the same figure passes you twice in the same way, like a looping clip. You might try to open a door only for it to snap shut and reappear behind you, or glance at a clock that morphs its numbers every time you blink. Even in the boundless freedom of dreaming, these breaks in flow feel unnatural, as if the dream is running on faulty code. The most disturbing glitches are the ones that carry a sense of awareness with them, moments where you feel, deep in your chest, that the dream knows you're there. A person might turn their head to look at you in a way that's too deliberate, their eyes lingering as if you've broken some unspoken rule. The environment might freeze for a split second, everything going silent, before lurching forward again. It's in those moments you sense you are not fully in control, that something else might be sharing the dream with you. Neurologists would point to rapid shifts in brain activity during REM sleep, where the brain's attempt to weave together a coherent reality can falter. But when you wake, heart pounding, it's hard to shake the feeling that you caught your subconscious, or something far stranger, slipping. You remember it vividly, not because of what happened, but because for a moment, even in the impossible logic of dreams, you saw the curtain twitch. Missing stair phenomenon. The missing stair phenomenon is a social glitch, an unspoken agreement within a group to silently navigate around a dangerous or toxic individual instead of removing them. Imagine a staircase with one step missing. Everyone who lives there knows to step over it. They warn newcomers quietly or simply watch them trip, but no one ever fixes the stair. Over time, the danger becomes part of the landscape, normalized through collective neglect. In human terms, the missing stair is the coworker everyone avoids being alone with, the friend who always betrays trust, the family member whose cruelty is excused as just how they are. Outsiders might expect swift action, but those inside the circle have adapted, building unspoken systems to keep the peace rather than confront the problem. It's not that they don't see the harm, it's that the disruption of challenging it feels more threatening than the harm itself. The result is a disturbing kind of social complicity. Warnings become coded, whispered, or non-existent. New people learn the hard way. The group preserves its surface harmony at the cost of safety and integrity, enabling the very behavior it pretends to sidestep. What makes this phenomenon chilling is how invisible it becomes to those accustomed to it. They stop seeing the missing stair as broken at all. It's simply the way things are. But for the person tripping for the first time, the shock is sharp, the fall painful, and the realization devastating. Everyone knew, and in that moment, the problem is no longer just the missing stair, it's the silent, complicit structure that chose to leave it missing. Sudden lost word. The sudden lost word is a subtle yet deeply unsettling mental glitch, when a word you know as well as your own name slips completely out of reach. You can almost feel it hovering at the edge of your mind, a shape without sound, a ghost of a syllable that refuses to materialize. You know it. You can see its meaning, imagine its use, but the bridge between thought and speech has collapsed in an instant. It often happens mid-conversation, when you're speaking fluently, your words flowing effortlessly, and then nothing. A pause, a flicker of confusion, a scrambling for synonyms as your mind frantically searches for the missing piece. People laugh it off, calling it tip-of-the-tongue syndrome, but in the moment, it's a jarring reminder that your thoughts and your voice are not as seamlessly connected as you'd like to believe. Neurologists attribute it to a temporary retrieval failure in the brain's language network, where the sound of the word can't be accessed even though its meaning is intact. Stress, fatigue, or distraction can make these gaps more frequent, turning language into a fragile construct that can fracture without warning. But what makes it unnerving is the feeling of mental disconnection, as though a small but vital file has been misplaced in your mind's cabinet. The conversation moves on, but part of you is still stuck, scanning your mental shelves, searching for the lost fragment. Hours later, the word might snap back into your consciousness uninvited, mocking you with its belated arrival, proof that it was never gone, only hiding in some unreachable corner of yourself. Pareidolia. Pareidolia is the strange, almost magical glitch in perception where your brain sees meaning where none exists, transforming random patterns into something familiar. It's the moment you spot a face in the swirls of wood grain, a human figure in the shadows, or an animal outlined in the clouds. The recognition is instant and unshakable. You don't just see shapes, you see something real, as if the image was always meant to be there. This happens because the human brain is hardwired to detect patterns, especially faces, with astonishing speed. From an evolutionary standpoint, spotting a face in the distance could mean the difference between survival and danger, so our minds became exquisitely sensitive to these cues. The cost of this sensitivity is false positives. We see intention, design, or familiarity in pure randomness. But pareidolia isn't limited to harmless shapes in nature. It can feel eerily intimate, even unsettling. You might catch a glimpse of a stranger's expression in a crumpled shirt on the floor, or see eyes staring back at you from the peeling paint on a wall. Some people describe a sudden shiver, an irrational certainty that they're being watched, even though they know the face is only an illusion. It's a reminder that your mind is not a passive lens, but an active interpreter, constantly shaping the world to fit what it expects to find. And sometimes those expectations bleed into your perception in ways that feel almost supernatural, making you wonder if you're just seeing things, or if, in some strange way, something might actually be looking back. Phantom limb sensation. Phantom limb sensation is the eerie, disorienting experience of feeling a body part that no longer exists. For amputees, it can be as subtle as an itch on a missing finger, or as jarring as a sudden cramp in a leg that's long gone. The sensation is often so real that people instinctively reach to scratch, rub, or stretch what is no longer there, only to be met with the hollow realization that the limb is nothing but memory. Neurologists explain it as the brain refusing to update its map of the body. Even after an amputation, the network of nerves and the region of the brain dedicated to that limb remain active. When those neural pathways fire, the mind still interprets the signals as coming from the missing part. Sometimes the sensations are mild, but for many, they can be deeply distressing. Sharp pain, burning, or the feeling of the limb being twisted into impossible positions. What makes it haunting is the way it blurs the line between physical reality and mental construction. You know the limb is gone, yet your body insists it's still there, as if part of you is trapped in a parallel version of yourself. Some describe it as a ghost of the body, an echo of who they were before, lingering stubbornly in the nervous system. For some, the phantom becomes a reminder of loss. For others, it's a constant, disorienting double life, the visible body they inhabit and the invisible one their mind refuses to let go of. It's proof that the body can vanish, but the self's memory of it can be harder, sometimes impossible, to erase. False memory from storytelling. False memory from storytelling is the quiet rewriting of your mind's history, where repeated tales, whether told by others or by yourself, slowly become indistinguishable from genuine experience. You might start with a hazy recollection, a story you've heard your parents tell about you as a child, or an event a friend swears you were part of. At first, you know you're relying on their words, not your own memory. But over time, the retelling plants images, sensations, even emotions, until you can remember it as vividly as if you'd lived it firsthand. The process is subtle and insidious. Every time we recall a memory, our brain doesn't just pull it from storage. It rewrites it, influenced by current emotions, the reactions of others, and new details slipped in through conversation. Storytelling becomes a kind of collaborative editing, where facts bend to fit the narrative, and the boundary between truth and fabrication thins until it's invisible. It can happen in groups, where shared retellings create entire false histories. A family might all remember the same vacation disaster, even though photographs or records prove it never occurred. Friends might reminisce about a wild night that, in reality, was much tamer, or never happened at all. And the scariest part is how real these false memories feel. You're not lying when you repeat them. Your mind has claimed them as its own. What makes this phenomenon unsettling is that it blurs the line between who you are and the stories you've been told. If memory shapes identity, and memory can be rewritten so easily, then how much of your life is truly yours, and how much has been unknowingly borrowed from someone else's imagination? Auditory hallucinations in white noise. Auditory hallucinations in white noise are one of the most unnerving glitches in human perception, the mind conjuring phantom voices, whispers, or even music from the steady hiss of static. It can happen when you're listening to the hum of a fan, the rush of running water, or the soft crackle of a radio tuned between stations. At first, it's just noise. Then, almost imperceptibly, shapes begin to form inside it. Patterns your brain insists are there. You might catch what sounds like a distant conversation, words you can't quite make out, or the faint rise and fall of a melody you've never heard before. Sometimes the voices seem friendly, familiar, even comforting. Other times, they carry an edge, a sharpness that makes your stomach tighten, as if you're overhearing something you were never meant to hear. Scientists explain it as Pareidolia of the ears, a byproduct of the brain's pattern recognition systems, searching for meaning and randomness. Our auditory cortex is wired to detect voices above all else, so when fed with formless sound, it will bend and twist it into something recognizable, even if it's not real. Yet knowing that doesn't strip away the unease. These hallucinations feel less like random accidents and more like transmissions bleeding through from somewhere else, like the noise is a veil, and for a moment you've tuned into another frequency entirely. It's the uncanny sense that the voices aren't just in your head, but in the sound itself, waiting for you to notice them. And once you've heard them, the white noise is no longer just background. It's a gateway you can't completely close. Apophenia. Apophenia is the mind's relentless drive to find patterns in chaos, a compulsion so strong that it can make you see connections where none exist. It's the spark that makes you think two unrelated events are linked, that a sequence of numbers holds a hidden code, or that random coincidences are signs pointing towards some greater, unseen truth. In the moment, it doesn't feel like guessing. It feels like uncovering something that was meant to be found. The human brain evolved to be a pattern recognition machine. In a dangerous, unpredictable world, detecting a predator in the bushes, even if it was just the wind, was safer than missing the real threat. But this survival instinct comes at a cost. It means we're constantly connecting dots that don't belong together, weaving meaning into randomness until it takes on the weight of reality. Apophenia can be harmless, even whimsical, like imagining shapes in clouds or linking song lyrics to your own life. But it can also become consuming, pulling people into elaborate webs of cause and effect that exist only in their minds. Someone might see secret messages in newspaper headlines, divine guidance in random street signs, or cosmic significance in an overheard phrase. The emotional pull is powerful. Once you believe you've uncovered a hidden pattern, every new clue feels like confirmation, locking you deeper into the illusion. What makes apophenia so unsettling is that it blurs the line between perception and reality. It forces the question, how much of what we believe about the world is truly there, and how much is just our brain desperately trying to impose order on a universe that may not have any? Tetris Effect. The Tetris Effect is the strange and sometimes overwhelming phenomenon where something you've done repeatedly begins to bleed into your mind long after you've stopped. Named after the iconic puzzle game, it often starts innocently. You play for hours, stacking shapes, rotating pieces, clearing lines. But later, when you close your eyes, the blocks are still falling, rearranging themselves in the darkness behind your eyelids. You might dream in grids and colors, or catch yourself mentally fitting real-world objects together as if they were game pieces. It isn't just Tetris. People who've spent days skiing might feel the phantom sway of the slopes while lying in bed. Long after working on a jigsaw puzzle, you might visualize where pieces should go. Swimmers report feeling the rhythm of their strokes on dry land. Shoppers mentally stack groceries into the most efficient space. The brain, still locked into the repetitive pattern, keeps running the loop, even without conscious effort. Neuroscientists believe the Tetris effect happens because repetitive activity strengthens certain neural pathways, making the mind reluctant or unable to shut them down immediately. In a way, it's your brain trying to get better at the task, replaying it to refine the skill. But there's something unsettling about it, especially when the images or emotions start intruding into everyday life. It's as if the game, the activity, has reached into your head and etched itself into the architecture of your thoughts. And for some, the Tetris effect can feel almost parasitic, like an uninvited guest in your mind that lingers, shaping how you see the world, even in moments that should belong entirely to you. Corrupted blood incident. The corrupted blood incident began as a digital glitch, but spiraled into something far more unsettling, a virtual plague that broke free of its intended boundaries and turned an online world into a chilling mirror of real-world pandemics. In 2005, the massively multiplayer game World of Warcraft introduced a raid boss whose special attack, Corrupted Blood, was designed to infect players briefly within the battle. It was meant to stay contained, a temporary hazard in a controlled environment, but it didn't. A single overlooked detail allowed the infection to hitch a ride on summoned pets and non-player characters, carrying it far beyond the raid zone. Suddenly, entire cities within the game were overrun. Characters dropped dead in streets littered with corpses. Some players tried to flee to remote areas, others acted as healers, risking their own infection to help. And then there were the griefers, those who intentionally spread the disease, turning themselves into walking bioweapons. The chaos lasted for days, drawing the attention of epidemiologists and disaster response experts who saw in it a raw, unscripted simulation of human behavior under crisis. People panicked, people sacrificed, people exploited, and all of it unfolded in real time. not in a lab or a lecture, but in a living, breathing virtual society. What made it haunting was how easily it slipped from harmless entertainment into a dark social experiment, unplanned, uncontrolled, and brutally revealing. Behind the safety of screens, players didn't just battle a digital plague. They reenacted the deepest instincts of humanity when faced with an invisible, contagious threat. It was supposed to be just a game mechanic. Instead, it became a stark reminder of how fragile our systems and our morals can be when the rules suddenly change. Ghosting GPS. Ghosting GPS is the unsettling moment when your navigation system insists you are somewhere you're not. Your blue dot sliding across streets you've never seen, drifting into open water, or jumping miles ahead in an instant. One moment, you're watching your route unfold normally. The next, your location snaps to a place that makes no sense, as if the digital version of you has slipped into a parallel map. It can happen in the middle of a drive, during a hike, or even while standing still. You glance down at your phone and see yourself moving when you haven't taken a single step, or watch your route curve into impossible shapes that defy the roads around you. For some, it's just a frustrating glitch. For others, it feels eerily like the world's digital twin has mistaken you for someone or something else. Technically, ghosting GPS is often blamed on weak satellite signals, reflections off buildings, or interference that confuses your receiver. The system tries to fill in the gaps, predicting your location until it gets a stronger fix, and in doing so, it creates ghost movements that never happen. But the effect can feel far stranger than the science suggests. There's something deeply disorienting about watching a trusted map show you in the wrong place, especially when it happens in an unfamiliar area. In those moments, the line between the physical world and its digital reflection feels unstable, as though reality could be rewritten by an error in the code. You're left staring at your phantom self on the screen, wondering which one of you is truly lost. ATM Duplicate Transaction Glitch. The ATM Duplicate Transaction Glitch is one of those rare, almost surreal moments when the rigid precision of the banking system stumbles and money seems to bend the rules. It happens when you withdraw cash or make a transfer, and through some hidden fault deep in the system's machinery, the exact same transaction is processed twice, leaving you with double the funds or duplicate entries in your account history. For a brief, intoxicating moment, it feels like you've stepped into a loophole in reality where numbers don't add up the way they should. This glitch can occur for many reasons: a faulty network handshake between machines, delayed confirmation signals, or a processing error during peak load. Sometimes the ATM believes the first attempt failed and reissues the request without canceling the original. From your perspective, you might see your receipt, take your cash, and walk away thinking nothing unusual happened, until you check your account later and realize the balance has shifted in your favor. The emotional impact is immediate and complex: a rush of surprise, a flicker of disbelief, and for some, the dangerous temptation to exploit it. Stories circulate of people withdrawing thousands before the bank noticed, turning a small hiccup into a criminal investigation. Because no matter how accidental the error, banks rarely let such things slide, and digital records leave a trail impossible to erase. What makes this glitch so unnerving is how it reveals the fragility of systems we're taught to see as unshakable. Money, which feels fixed and absolute, is suddenly fluid, slipping through cracks you didn't even know existed, cracks that can open and close without warning, leaving you to wonder how many other silent glitches go unnoticed every day. Stock market flash crash. The stock market flash crash is one of the most dramatic and unnerving events in modern finance, a sudden, violent plunge in market prices that seems to come from nowhere, erasing billions of dollars in value in minutes before just as abruptly snapping back. Traders describe watching the numbers on their screens collapse like a building imploding in slow motion. the air in trading floors growing tense and electric as panic sets in. For those heavily invested, it feels like the ground itself is giving way beneath their feet. One of the most infamous examples occurred on May 6, 2010, when the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped nearly 1,000 points in less than 10 minutes, wiping out nearly $1 trillion in market value before rebounding. Many stood frozen, unable to decide whether to sell, buy, or simply watch the chaos unfold. For some, it was already too late. Their automated stop-loss orders had triggered, selling their positions at rock-bottom prices, only for the market to recover moments later. Investigations pointed to high-frequency trading algorithms reacting in microseconds to cascading sell orders, feeding a chain reaction that spiraled out of control. In those minutes, human decision-making was almost irrelevant. The machines were in charge, and they weren't built to pause for panic or reason. What makes a flash crash so unsettling isn't just the speed, it's the feeling that something as massive and seemingly solid as the financial system can crack in an instant, triggered by invisible processes most people will never see. It's a reminder that the economy we depend on is, in part, balanced on code that can shatter in less time than it takes to blink. Boeing 787 software overflow. The Boeing 787 software overflow is a chilling example of how even the most advanced machines can be brought to their knees by a quiet, invisible glitch. Hidden deep within the aircraft's electrical system software was a timer, a counter that ticked away the moments since the system was powered on. But this timer had a limit, a number it could not exceed without breaking, and after exactly 248 days of continuous operation, it would reach that limit, roll over to zero, and trigger something no pilot ever wants to see mid-flight, a total loss of electrical power. This wasn't a flicker or a dimming. It meant complete shutdown of the plane's electrical systems, including those crucial for navigation and control. The nightmare scenario wasn't that it might happen often, but that it could happen without warning if a system had been running too long without a reset. A commercial airliner high above the ocean could simply go dark. When the flaw was discovered, airlines were issued an urgent directive: reboot the entire electrical system before hitting the 248-day threshold. It was a strange, almost surreal solution, like telling pilots to turn it off and back on again to keep a $200 million aircraft safe. What makes this incident so unsettling isn't just the danger, but the fragility it exposed. A tiny piece of overlooked code had the potential to ground an entire fleet. It's a reminder that in an age where we trust machines with hundreds of lives at a time, the smallest unseen number ticking away in the dark can carry the weight of catastrophe. Mars Polar Lander Misinterpretation. The Mars Polar Lander Misinterpretation is a stark reminder that even in the vast precision of space exploration, a single misunderstood signal can erase years of work in a heartbeat. In December 1999, NASA's $165 million spacecraft was gliding toward the surface of Mars, the culmination of a mission designed to search for signs of water and unlock secrets of the planet's climate. Then, in the final moments before landing, something went wrong, fatally wrong. As the lander descended, its legs were programmed to deploy and lock into place before touchdown. A sensor on one of those legs sent a signal back to the computer, indicating they had extended, but the software misread this as confirmation that the lander had already touched the ground. Believing the descent was over, the onboard system prematurely shut off the descent engines, while the craft was still more than 40 meters above the Martian surface. With nothing to slow it, the Mars Polar Lander plummeted the remaining distance, smashing into the red dust at hundreds of kilometers per hour. There was no second chance, no backup plan, just silence. Years of planning, design, and anticipation vanished in the time it takes for a single line of code to act on the wrong assumption. The emotional weight of the loss wasn't just in the money or the technology, it was in the human hope strapped to that machine. For those watching from Earth, it was as if the lander had fallen through a trapdoor in reality itself, swallowed whole by a planet that had never felt closer, yet in that instant seemed infinitely far away. Ariane 5 Self-Destruct. The Ariane 5 Self-Destruct stands as one of the most infamous and haunting moments in aerospace history. A $370 million rocket, years in the making, obliterated in less than 40 seconds after launch, not because of a mechanical failure, but because of a single line of flawed code. It was June 4th, 1996, and the European Space Agency's Pride was soaring into the sky on its maiden voyage. Then, without warning, it veered wildly off course, broke apart, and exploded in a cascade of fire over the South American jungle. The cause was as devastatingly simple as it was unforgivable: a data conversion error. The rocket's guidance system attempted to convert a 64-bit floating point number into a 16-bit integer, an operation that overflowed the memory and crashed the primary and backup computers. Both systems failed in perfect unison, leaving the rocket blind and helpless, its engines still roaring toward destruction. The true weight of the disaster wasn't just in the money or the years of preparation lost. It was in the revelation that human oversight, not hardware, brought down a technological marvel. The Ariane 5 didn't fail because of an unpredictable anomaly. It failed because code from the older Ariane 4 was reused without fully accounting for the differences in flight dynamics. A legacy assumption buried in the system doomed it before it even left the ground. In the end, the rocket's self-destruct system activated automatically, ending the mission in a flash of light and smoke. For those who witnessed it, the sight was more than an engineering tragedy. It was a chilling reminder that in the most advanced systems, it can take only one unnoticed flaw to turn triumph into catastrophe. Night Capital Fiasco. The Night Capital Fiasco is a cautionary tale of how a single glitch can cripple a financial giant in less than an hour. On the morning of August 1st, 2012, one of Wall Street's largest trading firms unleashed chaos across the U.S. stock market, not because of a market crash, not because of fraud, but because of a software deployment gone catastrophically wrong. It began with the rollout of new trading code meant to handle orders faster and more efficiently, but buried within that code was an old, dormant program, resurrected by mistake, that wasn't designed for the current market environment. The moment trading opened, the glitch triggered thousands of unintended buy and sell orders across dozens of stocks every second. Prices on certain shares swung wildly, some soaring by 150%, others collapsing without warning. Traders watching the screen saw movements so erratic they looked almost like deliberate sabotage. In just 45 minutes, Night Capital had unintentionally bought stocks it didn't want and sold others at disastrous prices. By the time they shut it down, the damage was irreversible: $440 million in losses, wiping out nearly all of the company's capital and effectively sealing its fate. What makes this incident chilling isn't just the scale of the loss, it's how helpless humans were to stop it. The algorithms were executing trades faster than any person could react, a runaway chain reaction fueled entirely by code. In less than an hour, a titan of high-frequency trading was brought to its knees, proving that in a world where milliseconds mean millions, one stray line of code can become a financial extinction event. Heartbleed. Heartbleed was not just a bug, it was a silent, bleeding wound in the very infrastructure of the internet. Hidden inside OpenSSL, a widely used encryption library meant to protect passwords, banking details, and private communications, was a flaw so simple yet so devastating that it allowed attackers to quietly reach into a server's memory and take whatever they found there. No alarms, no traces, no warning. It was born from a single overlooked detail in a heartbeat feature, a small exchange of signals meant to keep secure connections alive. The code failed to check the length of the requested data properly, meaning an attacker could ask for more than they should, up to 64 kilobytes at a time, and the server, obediently and blindly, would hand it over. That data could be anything: usernames, passwords, credit card numbers, even the server's private keys that, once stolen, made all past and future encrypted conversations vulnerable. For 2 years, Heartbleed lived unnoticed in plain sight, embedded in software trusted by millions of websites worldwide. During that time, anyone who knew about it could have been harvesting private data on a massive scale, and no one would ever know. The fear wasn't just in what could be stolen, it was in the haunting possibility that it had already happened, quietly, over and over. When the bug was finally exposed in 2014, the scramble was global. Companies rushed to patch their systems, rotate keys, and warn users. But the true damage was immeasurable because the nature of Heartbleed meant the blood had already been spilled, and there was no way to know how much had been lost or who had been watching all along. Therac-25 Overdoses. The Therac-25 Overdoses remain one of the most chilling examples of how a hidden glitch can turn a life-saving machine into a silent killer. In the 1980s, the Therac-25 was hailed as a technological leap in cancer treatment, a state-of-the-art radiation therapy machine that promised pinpoint accuracy without the need for bulky mechanical safeguards. But beneath its sleek design and trust in software lay a catastrophic flaw. Patients would lie on the treatment table, placing their lives in the hands of a machine that could deliver deadly doses of radiation with no outward sign of malfunction. Due to a rare race condition in the software, an error triggered when an operator entered commands in a precise sequence at high speed. The Therac-25 could bypass critical safety checks. Instead of delivering a small, targeted beam, it unleashed radiation hundreds of times more powerful than intended. The results were horrifying. Patients suffered intense burns, neurological damage, and, in several cases, death. What made it even more haunting was how the overdoses often unfolded. No alarms blaring, no dramatic sparks, just the quiet hum of a machine calmly doing the wrong thing. For years, the manufacturer resisted acknowledging a software issue, pointing instead to human error, even as more victims emerged. Only after relentless investigation did the truth come out. The safeguards had been replaced with software that was assumed to be infallible, but in reality, it was fragile, untested, and deadly when it failed. The Therac-25 is a brutal reminder that even the tools meant to heal can become instruments of destruction when trust in technology outpaces caution, and that a glitch hidden deep in code can reach out and take a life without warning. Vancouver Stock Exchange Rounding Bug. The Vancouver Stock Exchange rounding bug was a slow-motion disaster, an invisible leak in the financial system that quietly drained millions over the course of nearly 2 years. It began in 1982, when the exchange launched a new index intended to track the performance of listed companies. Each time the index was recalculated, hundreds of times a day, the value was rounded off to 3 decimal places. It seemed like a harmless bit of tidying, the kind of detail no one would notice. But the rounding wasn't neutral. Every recalculation trimmed away a microscopic fraction of value, and those fractions added up. The index started at 1,000 points, and without a single market crash or mass sell-off, it began to sink. Not dramatically, not enough to trigger alarms, just a steady, almost imperceptible decline. Traders blamed market forces, sluggish performance, or investor sentiment. No one suspected that the numbers themselves were bleeding out from the inside. By the time the problem was discovered in 1983, the index had inexplicably dropped to 520 points, erasing nearly half its value. The cause? Those tiny, repeated rounding errors had compounded into a massive distortion of reality, warping how the market's health was perceived and influencing decisions built on faulty data. The revelation was both embarrassing and chilling. Here was proof that a simple computational oversight, barely a footnote in the system's design, could rewrite the narrative of an entire market. Investors had been trading, buying, and selling based on a truth that wasn't true, and the system that was supposed to measure reality had instead been quietly bending it with every calculation. USS Yorktown, divide by zero. The USS Yorktown divide by zero incident is a stark reminder of how something as small as a single mathematical error can cripple a $1 billion warship. In September 1997, during routine operations, the Navy's state-of-the-art smart ship suddenly became a drifting hulk in the water, not from enemy attack, not from mechanical failure, but because a computer program tried to divide by zero. The ship's systems were heavily reliant on its Windows-based control network, designed to automate everything from navigation to engineering. That morning, a crew member entered a zero into a data field where the software expected another value. It was a harmless mistake on paper, but to the operating system, it was catastrophic. The divide by zero error caused the entire network to crash, taking down propulsion, steering, and key operational systems with it. As the massive vessel floated powerless, the crew scrambled to restart the systems, but without manual backups for certain operations, the Yorktown was effectively blind and paralyzed. It had to be towed back to port, an embarrassing fate for what was meant to be the pride of modern naval technology. The incident exposed the fragility hidden inside advanced military systems, how a single unchecked input could cascade into total operational failure. It wasn't just a programming oversight, it was a vulnerability that could have been exploited in combat, turning one of the Navy's most advanced ships into a billion-dollar sitting duck. And, in that moment, the illusion of invincibility built around military technology cracked, revealing that even the mightiest warship can be brought down by something as trivial and as merciless as a zero. F-22 fighter crash. The F-22 fighter crash caused by a software glitch is a stark reminder that even the most advanced military technology can be undone by a single, invisible flaw in code. In 2007, during a mission meant to showcase the F-22 Raptor's capabilities, a fleet of these stealth fighters crossed the international date line, a routine geographic transition that turned catastrophic. As they passed that invisible line in the Pacific, the onboard computers encountered a bug in their navigation and system software. The date shift triggered a cascade of errors, wiping out essential data. Navigation systems went dark, communications failed, flight controls, heavily reliant on the aircraft's complex electronics, became unstable. In the span of moments, one of the most sophisticated jets in the world was reduced to little more than an extremely expensive, barely controllable hunk of metal in the sky. Pilots had no choice but to turn back, relying on visual flight and backup systems to limp home. The incident could have been far worse. Had the conditions been harsher, or had the malfunction occurred during combat, lives could have been lost. What makes this event so unsettling is the scale of vulnerability it revealed: billions of dollars in cutting-edge engineering, decades of research, the most advanced stealth capabilities in existence, all brought down by a simple date-handling error. It wasn't enemy fire or mechanical failure. It was a tiny, overlooked fragment of code that left the most feared aircraft in the skies effectively blind. In that moment, it became clear: even the strongest wings can be broken by a flaw too small to see until it's too late. ATM, Infinite Balance, Hack. The ATM Infinite Balance hack is the kind of glitch that sounds like urban legend until it happens. It begins with a flaw in the way certain banks process transactions, creating a narrow, fleeting window where withdrawals don't immediately register against the actual account balance. For those who stumble upon it or deliberately seek it out, it can feel like discovering a portal to limitless money. You insert your card, request more cash than you technically have, and somehow the machine complies. The account still appears flush, ready for another withdrawal. The trick often exploits delays in communication between the ATM network and the central banking system. If the machine dispenses cash, but the transaction record is held up or rejected in a way the ATM doesn't understand, the balance can appear untouched. For the unscrupulous, this becomes a temptation too great to resist. Rapid, repeated withdrawals before the system catches up and slams the door shut. Stories circulate of people pulling out thousands, even tens of thousands, before the inevitable reckoning. Some believe the glitch made the money free, only to find themselves facing criminal charges when the bank's audit logs reconstructed every unauthorized withdrawal down to the second. What makes this glitch so intoxicating and dangerous is the emotional rush it delivers. The cash feels real, solid in your hands, yet it came from a digital loophole. A brief fracture in the rules you've been taught are absolute. For a moment, it seems you've broken free from the rigid arithmetic of the financial world. But every portal closes, and when it does, the dream of an infinite balance often ends in the cold reality of debt, investigation, and handcuffs. Spirit Rover File Overload. The Spirit Rover File Overload was a quiet but devastating glitch that nearly ended one of NASA's most ambitious missions on the surface of Mars. In January 2004, Spirit had just begun its exploration, sending back breathtaking images and data from the red planet. Everything was running smoothly until, almost overnight, the rover fell silent. Commands from Earth went unanswered. Telemetry stopped. It was as if the little machine had simply vanished into the Martian dust. Behind the silence was a digital logjam. Spirit's onboard computer had been dutifully storing files, images, sensor readings, operational data, without clearing enough space for new ones. Over time, the flash memory became clogged with thousands of tiny files, most of them unneeded housekeeping data. Eventually, the system reached a tipping point. There was so little free space left that the rover couldn't complete even basic operations without crashing. To Mission Control, it was maddening. Every attempt to wake Spirit risked pushing it further into instability. For days, engineers worked around the clock, combing through code, sending carefully crafted commands, and trying to coax the rover into a minimal operating mode. Slowly, piece by piece, they began deleting the clutter that had brought the mission to its knees. The emotional impact was enormous. Spirit wasn't just a robot. It was humanity's eyes and hands on another world. Watching it teeter on the edge of digital suffocation felt like holding your breath for a friend who'd stopped breathing. When the rover finally responded again, the relief was palpable, but the scare left a lasting mark, a reminder that in the unforgiving silence of space, even something as simple as a full hard drive can bring a marvel of engineering to a standstill. Pokémon MissingNo is one of the most infamous and surreal glitches in gaming history, an accidental digital ghost that haunted the original Pokémon Red and Blue cartridges. Short for Missing Number, it wasn't a character designed by the developers, but a corrupted fragment of data born from the game's memory structure colliding with itself. Players who encountered it often described the moment with a strange mix of excitement and unease, as if they had stumbled into forbidden territory. The glitch could be triggered through a specific sequence of actions involving talking to an in-game NPC, flying to a certain location, and surfing along the coast. When done correctly, the screen would suddenly fill with a warped, pixelated creature, a jagged mess of graphics that didn't belong to the neat, orderly Pokémon roster. Missing Number's presence often came with bizarre side effects, item duplication, scrambled visuals, distorted battle scenes. What made it legendary was not just what it did, but how it felt. In a game world built on predictable rules and careful balance, Missing Numbers was raw chaos, a living crack in the code that the player could peek through. It was proof that the seemingly solid world of Pokémon was just a thin layer over fragile programming. Rumors swirled around it for years. Some kids believed catching it could destroy your game forever. Others swore it could unlock hidden Pokémon or secret areas. In reality, Missing Numbers was harmless if you knew what you were doing, but the eerie thrill of encountering it made it feel like a forbidden secret, as if you'd reached behind the curtain and touch the raw machinery of the game itself. Mario Minus World. The Mario Minus World is one of gaming's most legendary and eerie glitches, a place that was never meant to exist, hidden deep inside the code of the original Super Mario Bros. On the surface, it looks like any other level, familiar blue bricks, water, and enemies drifting by. But there's something wrong here. The timer counts down as usual, yet there's no exit, no flagpole, no way forward. You're trapped in a looping prison of your own persistence. The glitch occurs when players exploit a specific wall-jumping trick near a warp zone. By confusing the game's memory, you can force it to load a scrambled destination, World War I. This negative world isn't a real level. It's a mishmash of leftover data stitched together by accident, and yet, once you're inside, it feels intentional, almost haunting in its design. The screen scrolls endlessly, cycling you back to the start over and over, as if mocking your attempts to escape. What makes the Minus World so unsettling isn't just its impossibility, it's the sense of trespassing into a hidden space you were never meant to see. It's the moment when a cheerful, predictable game reveals a jagged seam in its reality, and you fall through into something broken, wrong, and eternal. For players who first discovered it as kids, the memory lingers like a ghost story, the secret underwater purgatory where Mario swims forever, and nothing you do can set him free. It's just you, the glitch, and the creeping realization that you've stepped outside the safety of the game's rules into a place where the rules no longer matter. Viewtiful Joe 2 Demo. The Viewtiful Joe 2 Demo glitch is the kind of hidden landmine in gaming that turns excitement into devastation in the span of a loading screen. Released as a playable preview for eager fans, the demo was meant to be a harmless taste of the full game, just a short, colorful showcase of Capcom's stylish combat and comic book flair. But buried deep in its code was a flaw so destructive it didn't just crash the game, it reached beyond it. For players who launched the demo from certain memory cards on the PlayStation 2, a specific sequence of loading and saving would trigger a catastrophic bug. Instead of accessing only its own save data, the demo would overwrite or erase every file on the memory card. Years of progress in other games, hundreds of hours of hard-earned achievements vanished in an instant, replaced by corrupted data blocks or nothing at all. The glitch had no flashy warning, no dramatic sign of disaster. One moment you'd be fighting cartoon villains in a burst of color, the next, your memory card was an empty shell. For many, it was an emotional gut punch. Childhood saves, rare unlocks, and entire gaming histories erased without a trace, all because of a disc meant to build hype for an upcoming release. News of the glitch spread quickly through forums and magazines, transforming anticipation into anger and heartbreak. It wasn't just a technical failure, it was a breach of trust. The Viewtiful Joe 2 demo had promised a preview of fun, but for some, it became a permanent reminder that even in entertainment, one small glitch can take something from you that you can never get back. Bubble Bobble Revolution. Bubble Bobble Revolution was meant to be a cheerful revival of a beloved arcade classic, but it became infamous for a glitch so catastrophic it rendered the game literally unwinnable. Released for the Nintendo DS in 2006, the game followed the same formula fans adored, clearing levels by trapping enemies in bubbles, until players reach what should have been the climactic boss battle. Instead of a fight, they were greeted with nothing, an empty stage, no enemies, no triggers, no way to progress. The glitch wasn't a quirky side effect or a rare bug. It was hard-coded into every copy of the UK release. The final boss simply never spawned. Players who had invested hours into conquering the game's colorful stages hit a dead end with no warning, their progress trapped in digital limbo. For many, the realization came slowly. They replayed the level, restarted the system, even swapped cartridges, only to discover the truth. The game was broken by design. This wasn't just frustrating, it was surreal. A video game is supposed to reward persistence, to lead you toward a final victory. Bubble Bobble Revolution instead became a closed loop, a cheerful facade masking a fatal emptiness at its core. The sense of betrayal was sharp, especially for fans who had waited years for a new installment, only to find themselves stuck in a manufactured purgatory. The glitch became a cautionary tale in gaming history, proof that even the most joyful, innocent experiences can collapse under a single overlooked detail. And for those who played it, the memory isn't of the bubbles or the bright colors, it's of the hollow silence where the final challenge should have been, and the creeping realization that the game had nothing left to give. GTA Blue Hell. Blue Hell is the name Grand Theft Auto players gave to one of the strangest and most unsettling glitches in the series, a place that isn't really a place at all. It's the void beneath the game world, a cold, endless space where the map disappears and reality falls apart. One wrong step, a collision glitch, or an intentional trick, and suddenly your character drops through the asphalt, plunging past the underside of the city into a surreal, blue nothingness. Down there, landmarks float above you like unreachable islands. The ground is gone, replaced by infinite sky stretching in every direction. Sometimes you'll fall endlessly, watching the underside of the game's geometry drift further away until it vanishes. Other times, you'll land on strange, invisible surfaces, wandering aimlessly in a hollow version of the world you know. It feels less like a glitch and more like stumbling into the backstage of reality, a place you were never meant to see. The name Blue Hell comes from the eerie, empty blue backdrop that fills the void, though in some GTA games, it can shift to pitch black or surreal colors. Players often describe the experience as oddly lonely, even when they entered it deliberately. The normal chaos of GTA, the traffic, the chatter, the gunfire, is replaced by silence and emptiness, broken only by the faint sound of your footsteps on invisible nothing. For many, it's a reminder that the vibrant, living cities of Grand Theft Auto are just illusions built on fragile code. In Blue Hell, the streets, the skyline, the life itself, all of it is gone. What's left is the skeleton of the game world, stripped bare, waiting for you to find your way back, if there even is one. Fallout Gary Bug. The Fallout Gary Bug is one of the strangest, most unsettling quirks in gaming, a glitch wrapped in creepypasta-level weirdness. In Fallout 3, there's a hidden vault, Vault 108, meant to be a disturbing side location. Inside, you encounter clones, dozens of identical men wearing hospital gowns, each with the same face, the same dead stare, and the same single word they can say, Gary. At first, you might find one or two wandering the sterile halls. They mutter their name in strange tones, sometimes curious, sometimes mocking, sometimes hostile. But as you move deeper, you realize the vault is full of them. They attack in swarms, all shouting, Gary, in chorus, their voices overlapping into a surreal, echoing chant. The deeper you go, the more it feels like you've stepped into a fever dream, where language, identity, and sanity have collapsed into a single, repetitive note. The Gary phenomenon isn't technically a bug, it's an intentional piece of dark world building, but it feels like one. The repetition, the identical faces, the unnatural behavior, it's the same eerie quality real glitches have, where reality seems stuck on a single frame, playing it over and over until it becomes disturbing. Players leave Vault 108 with a lingering unease, as if they've brushed up against some corrupted part of the game's memory that infected everything inside it. And maybe that's the creepiest part. It's not the combat or the jump scares, but the uncanny, looping humanity, a vault of broken people repeating themselves forever. Gary, 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 until you start to wonder if that's all you'd be able to say too if you stayed there long enough. Skyrim, backwards flying dragons. The Skyrim backwards flying dragons glitch is one of those rare gaming bugs that feels less like a technical hiccup and more like reality itself, folding in on a world you thought you understood. After Bethesda released a major patch for The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, players who eagerly downloaded it began to notice something strange in the skies. Dragons, Skyrim's towering, fire-breathing apex predators, were no longer soaring majestically forward. Instead, they were gliding, flapping, and even attacking, while moving entirely in reverse. It was both hilarious and deeply unsettling. You'd see a dragon sweeping across the mountains, its body angled toward you, but drifting backward as if being pulled by some invisible force. They would chase you in reverse, spewing fire or frost while sliding through the air like broken marionettes. Combat became unpredictable. Projectiles and movement patterns no longer made sense. The cause was eventually traced back to an unintended side effect of the patch, which had altered part of the game's underlying animation and creature behavior code. In fixing other issues, it accidentally rewired how dragons navigated through the game's space. But in the moment, for players wandering the snowy wilds, it felt like the laws of physics in Skyrim had suddenly unraveled. What made it unforgettable wasn't just the absurdity, it was the way it broke immersion in a game famous for its vast, believable world. One minute you were a warrior on an epic quest, the next you were watching a mythical beast moonwalk through the sky. It became an instant piece of gaming folklore, a reminder that even in a fantasy realm, glitches can turn awe into absurdity with a single misplaced line of code. No Man's Sky terrain holes. In the vast procedurally generated universe of No Man's Sky, players set out expecting endless wonder, alien worlds, strange creatures, landscapes stretching beyond imagination. But some explorers stumbled upon something far stranger than exotic beauty, enormous gaping holes in the terrain that plunged into a dark, geometry-breaking void. These weren't gentle dips or natural caves, they were jagged tears in the planet's skin, like reality itself had been ripped open. Falling into one was both mesmerizing and terrifying. You'd slip past the planet's surface and tumble into an abyss of broken textures and flickering shapes, the game's sky and ground folding in unnatural ways. Sometimes you'd emerge on the other side of the planet. Other times you'd fall endlessly until the game forcibly respawned you. The emptiness felt alien not because it was designed to be, but because it wasn't designed at all. These holes were the byproduct of procedural generation gone wrong. The algorithms that sculpted each unique planet occasionally stitched together incompatible terrain chunks, leaving behind impossible voids. For players, stumbling upon one felt like discovering the unfinished backstage of the universe, a place you were never meant to see. The emotional effect was uncanny. In a game built to immerse you in the fantasy of exploration, terrain holes shattered the illusion, exposing the fragile scaffolding holding the worlds together. They reminded you that behind every alien sunrise and lush forest was a set of imperfect rules, and sometimes those rules failed, leaving you staring into a nothingness that was, in its own way, more unsettling than any hostile creature the game could throw at you. GTA Online Money Duplication. The GTA Online money duplication glitch is one of the most notorious exploits in the game's history, a digital gold rush that turned ordinary players into instant millionaires and threw the in-game economy into chaos. It wasn't about grinding missions or pulling off elaborate heists. It was about finding the right combination of actions, locations, and timing to trick the game into creating money out of nothing. Players who discovered the glitch often guarded it like a treasure map, sharing it only in whispers or obscure forum posts. The process could be absurdly simple, selling the same car over and over again without losing it, or bizarrely complex, involving precise menu navigation, server switching, and manipulating in-game save states. When done right, the game would duplicate a high-value asset or dump massive payouts into a player's account in seconds. The results were intoxicating. Bank accounts swelled into the tens or hundreds of millions. Players who once scraped together cash for weapons or apartments were suddenly driving fleets of supercars and living in the game's most luxurious penthouses. But the glitch also poisoned the world around them. Streets filled with players flaunting impossible riches, the value of money itself eroded, and the normal sense of progression evaporated. Rockstar Games waged an ongoing war against the exploit, patching it repeatedly, wiping illegitimate accounts, and banning offenders. Yet for many, the memory of it lingers, not just as a trick for free cash, but as a glimpse into the fragile machinery behind GTA Online's carefully crafted world. For a brief moment, the rules didn't apply, and anyone with the knowledge could break the system wide open until the hammer inevitably came down. Madden Tiny Player Bug. The Madden Tiny Player Bug is the kind of glitch that transforms a realistic sports simulation into something surreal and vaguely unsettling. In certain versions of Madden NFL, a rare error in the character model scaling system could cause players on the field to load at the wrong size, sometimes shrinking them down to the height of a small child, or worse, to a bizarre doll-like figure barely reaching an opponent's knee. On the surface, it's hilarious. These miniature athletes darting between towering linemen, dodging tackles with comical ease. But there's something oddly disturbing about it too. The shrunken players move with the exact same animations as their full-size counterparts, their heads bobbing, limbs pumping, faces serious and focused. They aren't cartoons, they're perfect, tiny replicas of real professional athletes, trapped in bodies that don't match their world. For some players, the sight crosses into the uncanny valley. The proportions are almost correct, but not quite, making the scene feel like you're watching a fever dream of football. And when the bug appears unexpectedly, during a high-stakes online match, for example, it can throw your sense of immersion completely off balance. Like many glitches, the tiny player bug is the result of data being read incorrectly, scaling values going haywire somewhere in the loading process. But the effect is strangely memorable, almost legendary among fans. It's a reminder that beneath the polished surface of modern games, the code is always capable of snapping, revealing a reality where the rules of size, proportion, and normalcy simply don't apply, and where a 6-inch quarterback can still throw a perfect 60-yard pass. 2003 Northeast Blackout. The 2003 Northeast Blackout was a massive and almost surreal collapse of the power grid that left an estimated 50 million people across the United States and Canada suddenly plunged into darkness. It began on an ordinary August afternoon, people working in offices, air conditioners humming, subways running on schedule, when a seemingly small glitch in an Ohio control room spiraled into one of the largest blackouts in history. A software alarm system designed to alert operators to transmission line failures had quietly stopped working hours earlier. Without that warning, operators didn't realize that overloaded lines were sagging into overgrown trees, triggering a cascade of failures across the grid. One by one, power plants automatically shut down to protect themselves from instability, but in doing so, they pulled even more strain onto the remaining network. The collapse spread like a chain reaction, leaping across states and provinces in seconds. By late afternoon, cities from New York to Toronto were deadened. Traffic lights went dark, trains stalled mid-route, elevators froze between floors. In the sweltering summer heat, people spilled into the streets, trying to make sense of a skyline with no glow, a world without the constant hum of electricity. For some, the blackout brought eerie stillness, a silence broken only by distant sirens and the shuffle of footsteps. For others, it brought a sudden awareness of just how fragile modern life really is. Though power was restored to most areas within a couple of days, the psychological jolt lingered. One technical fault had unraveled the illusion of stability, revealing how one quiet, hidden failure could ripple outward until it swallowed entire cities whole. 2010 Flash Crash. The 2010 Flash Crash was a dizzying, almost surreal moment in financial history when the U.S. stock market seemed to unravel in a matter of minutes. On May 6th, without warning, major stock indices plunged at breathtaking speed. Some individual stocks dropped nearly to zero before snapping back just as violently. In less than half an hour, almost $1 trillion in market value appeared and disappeared like a mirage, leaving traders and spectators stunned. The chaos began with a massive automated sell order that flooded the market with contracts, overwhelming normal trading activity. High-frequency trading algorithms designed to react in fractions of a second began feeding off each other in a feedback loop, accelerating the plunge. Liquidity evaporated. Prices didn't just fall, they collapsed, some stocks selling for mere pennies, others spiking into the tens of thousands. For those watching in real time, it was like witnessing a digital earthquake, the entire financial system convulsing on screen. What made it so disturbing was the sheer fragility it exposed. The stock market, an institution built on the idea of stability and order, had been revealed as a system that could be thrown into chaos not by geopolitical disaster or corporate collapse, but by lines of code reacting too quickly for humans to intervene. The speed was inhuman, decisions and trades made in microseconds, far beyond comprehension, yet capable of erasing fortunes before anyone could take a breath. When it was over, the market recovered as quickly as it had fallen, but the damage was deeper than numbers. It left a lingering unease. If the system could shatter so completely in minutes, what other hidden triggers might be waiting to pull reality apart again? Lime Scooter Hard Brake Glitch. The Lime Scooter Hard Brake Glitch was a real-world tech malfunction that turned a casual ride into a sudden jolt of fear. Riders reported cruising through city streets when, without warning, the scooter's front wheel would slam into a full, instantaneous stop, as if someone had yanked the brakes to maximum in a split second. In an instant, balance was gone. Momentum turned against them, and many were thrown forward onto the pavement before they even realized what had happened. The glitch was traced to a firmware issue in certain Lime scooter models. When the onboard system detected irregularities, such as unusual speed readings from the front wheel sensor, it could trigger the braking system unnecessarily. On paper, it was meant to be a safety measure, but in reality, it created the exact opposite, a dangerous, unpredictable hazard for the person riding it. Reports poured in from multiple cities, with riders describing cuts, bruises, sprains, and in some cases, more serious injuries. The emotional effect went beyond the physical pain. Many said they never trusted the scooters again, flinching at every minor vibration, waiting for the phantom brake to hit. What had been marketed as a sleek, fun, and eco-friendly way to get around suddenly felt like an unpredictable trap. Lime eventually issued software updates to fix the problem, but the damage to its reputation was already done. The glitch was a reminder that in our rush to adopt connected, automated mobility, even a few lines of faulty code can transform convenience into chaos, and that on the street, a millisecond of bad programming can throw you face first into the unforgiving reality of asphalt. NASA Phobos, one loss. The NASA Phobos One a Loss is a story that reads like a cautionary tale about how the smallest human error can destroy years of work and hundreds of millions of dollars. Launched in 1988 as part of a Soviet-led mission to study Mars and its moon Phobos, the spacecraft was a technological marvel for its time, carrying sophisticated instruments and the hopes of groundbreaking discoveries, but it never made it past the journey. The failure began with something painfully mundane, a single missing hyphen in the software code. This tiny omission disabled the craft's attitude control system, the part responsible for keeping its solar panels aligned toward the sun. Without that alignment, the panels couldn't generate power. Slowly, the spacecraft's batteries drained, and with them, its life. One day, it was transmitting data as planned. The next, it fell silent forever, drifting powerless through space. What makes this loss so haunting is not just the fragility of the mission, but the stark reminder that in the vacuum of space, there are no second chances. A typo here on Earth is harmless. You backspace, correct it, and move on. But in the unforgiving vastness between planets, a single misplaced character in a string of code can mean the difference between triumph and failure. Phobos 1's demise is often cited as one of the most expensive typos in history, yet the emotional weight comes from imagining that silent craft, once full of purpose, now aimlessly tumbling in the dark, carrying with it instruments that will never see the world they were built to study, all because one line of code wasn't exactly as it should have been. Mars Global Surveyor. The Mars Global Surveyor was one of NASA's most successful Mars missions, until a single silent command ended it all. Launched in 1996, the spacecraft had spent nearly a decade circling the red planet, mapping its surface in breathtaking detail, monitoring its weather, and even detecting evidence that water might once have flowed there. It was a quiet workhorse, faithfully sending back data that reshaped humanity's understanding of Mars. And then, in November 2006, it vanished. The cause was as mundane as it was catastrophic. A series of incorrect commands uploaded by ground controllers. These instructions inadvertently tilted the surveyor's solar panels into a position where they could not properly receive sunlight. Worse, the orientation exposed one of its batteries to excessive heat, damaging it beyond recovery. The spacecraft's power reserves dwindled quickly, cutting off communications completely. There was no dramatic explosion, no visible failure, just a sudden, irreversible silence. The surveyor continued to orbit Mars, intact but lifeless, an 812 million achievement reduced to a powerless shell because of a simple human error. For the engineers who had worked on it for years, the loss was more than technical. It was deeply personal. The spacecraft was their eyes on another world, their link to a place they could never touch. To lose it, not to the hostile environment of Mars, but to a quiet oversight in a command sequence, felt like watching a friend drift away while you stood helpless, unable to call them back. Even now, the Mars Global Surveyor circles above the planet it once studied, a ghost in orbit, carrying the weight of what it might have still revealed. ESA CryoSat. The ESA CryoSat mission was meant to be a triumph, a cutting-edge satellite designed to measure the thickness of polar ice with unprecedented precision, a tool for understanding the planet's changing climate. On October 8, 2005, it soared into the sky aboard a rocket launcher from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome in Russia. But just minutes after liftoff, the mission ended in a catastrophic, almost surreal failure, not because the satellite malfunctioned, but because a single devastating oversight had been written into the launch sequence. As the rocket reached orbit, it was supposed to jettison its second stage and shut down its engines. That shutdown command never came. Instead, the engines kept firing, pushing the vehicle into an uncontrolled trajectory. The third stage never separated, and the satellite, still clamped to the dead weight of the rocket, was dragged back down through the atmosphere, burning up before it had even touched the edge of its mission. The cause was painfully simple. The command to shut down the engine had been left out of the flight software. No hardware fault, no sabotage, just a missing instruction in the code that governed a $170 million mission. All the engineering brilliance, the years of preparation, the hope of gathering crucial climate data, it all ended because one line of software was absent where it mattered most. For the scientists and engineers who had invested years of their lives into CryoSat, the loss was more than financial. It was an intimate kind of grief. The satellite never had the chance to fail, to succeed, or even to try. It died still strapped to the rocket that was supposed to set it free, a victim not of the hostile environment of space, but of the invisible fragility hidden in human hands. Kepler spacecraft, safe mode. The Kepler spacecraft safe mode incidents were like heart-stopping moments in a long, delicate surgery, times when one of humanity's most ambitious planet-hunting machines simply stopped. Launched in 2009 to search for distant worlds by detecting the faint dimming of starlight, Kepler was a marvel of precision. But in the vacuum of space, perfection is fragile. On multiple occasions, something triggered the spacecraft's autonomous safety protocol, shutting down its scientific instruments and placing it into safe mode, a kind of electronic hibernation meant to preserve its survival. From Earth, it would look like the spacecraft had suddenly gone silent. Kepler couldn't phone home as normal, and its main mission, scanning the heavens for signs of alien worlds, came to a halt. Engineers could only watch telemetry trickle in and hope the problem was reversible. Causes ranged from hardware glitches and software faults to cosmic rays striking sensitive electronics, flipping a single bit of data in a way that cascaded into a system-wide pause. The emotional impact on the mission team was enormous. Every safe mode event meant time lost, precious observations missed, and the looming possibility that Kepler might never recover. For a spacecraft millions of miles away, even a simple fix could take days to confirm, and all the while, the clock on its finite fuel supply kept ticking. In those tense periods, Kepler wasn't the powerful eye scanning the galaxy. It was a drifting sentinel, conserving energy in the cold dark. And for the people who had spent years of their lives building and operating it, the silence carried a weight that felt less like a technical pause and more like holding your breath in the vast, indifferent emptiness of space. Cassini memory error. The Cassini memory error was a stark reminder that even in the vast stillness of space, a single corrupted bit can bring a billion-dollar mission to its knees. Launched in 1997, the Cassini spacecraft was a masterpiece of engineering, built to explore Saturn, its rings, and its moons with an unprecedented level of detail. For years, it sailed flawlessly through the darkness, transmitting breathtaking images and priceless scientific data back to Earth. Then, without warning, something went wrong. In 2010, Cassini abruptly entered safe mode, a protective state designed to shut down all non-essential systems and wait for human intervention. The culprit, a cosmic ray, an invisible high-energy particle from deep space that struck one of the craft's computers, flipping a single bit in its memory from a 0 to a 1. That microscopic change was enough to cause the onboard software to panic, halting operations entirely until engineers could figure out what had happened. Safe mode is like a spacecraft curling into a defensive ball, conserving power and awaiting new instructions. But during that time, Cassini's instruments were offline, and no science, could be conducted. For mission control, it was a tense, nerve-wracking period, because each moment of lost observation in space is one you can never get back. The emotional weight of the incident comes from how fragile it made the mission feel. This was a machine that had survived the violent forces of launch, navigated billions of miles, and endured the extremes of space, yet it was brought low by a single invisible speck of energy. It was a quiet reminder that in the cold and endless night, even the smallest things can have colossal consequences. Hubble mirror flaw. The Hubble mirror flaw is one of the most infamous and heartbreaking mistakes in the history of space exploration, a reminder that even the most ambitious dreams can be undone by the smallest miscalculation. When NASA launched the Hubble Space Telescope in 1990, it was hailed as a new era for astronomy. This was humanity's eye in the heavens, designed to peer deeper into the universe than ever before, capturing galaxies billions of light years away with crystal clarity. But when the first images arrived, the celebration turned to disbelief. The stars in Hubble's pictures were blurred, smeared into soft halos instead of razor-sharp points. After years of planning, billions of dollars, and the hope of the global scientific community, the telescope's vision was flawed. Investigations revealed the cause. Its primary mirror had been ground to the wrong shape by just 2.2 microns, less than the width of a human hair. A tiny, almost imperceptible error in a testing device during manufacturing had gone unnoticed, and it had followed Hubble into orbit. The flaw didn't just blur images, it blurred the line between triumph and catastrophe. The telescope was in perfect health otherwise, taunting engineers with the knowledge that it could have worked flawlessly if not for that microscopic defect. For months, the world's most advanced observatory floated useless above Earth, a symbol of both human ambition and human fallibility. It would take a daring 1993 space shuttle mission to fit Hubble with corrective optics, like giving glasses to a giant in the sky. But in those first few years, before the fix, the Hubble mirror flaw stood as a sobering truth. Even the smallest misstep can warp the grandest visions, and in space, there is no margin for error. AT&T network crash, 1990. On January 15, 1990, the backbone of America's long-distance telephone network collapsed in a way that seemed almost impossible for such a vast and engineered system. AT&T's network, carrying millions of calls across the country, went dark, first in pockets, then in massive swaths, until the outage rippled coast to coast. For nearly 9 hours, long-distance calling in the United States was crippled, leaving businesses, emergency services, and ordinary people suddenly cut off from one another. The cause wasn't a storm, a power failure, or physical sabotage. It was a software update. A single line of flawed code had been added to the switching system, an obscure efficiency tweak intended to make the network faster. Instead, it created a devastating chain reaction. When one switch encountered the bug and crashed, it sent a busy signal to its neighboring switches. Those switches, trying to adjust, hit the same flaw and crashed in turn. The cascade spread like a virus through 114 switching centers across the country, each shutdown triggering the next in a perfect, nightmarish loop. The damage wasn't just technical, it was psychological. AT&T's network had been marketed as a marvel of modern reliability, a system too big and too smart to fail outright. But here it was, silenced by a microscopic oversight in its code. For engineers watching helplessly, it was a lesson in how interconnected systems can magnify a small error into a nationwide collapse. For the public, it was a glimpse of something more unsettling, the realization that the invisible infrastructure holding modern life together could be brought to its knees by a single unseen mistake. Gmail self-deletion glitch. The Gmail self-deletion glitch was the digital equivalent of waking up to find your house ransacked, except the missing valuables were years of your personal emails, photos, and conversations. For the unlucky users, it struck, the experience was surreal and gutting. One moment, their inboxes were full, organized, and familiar. The next, entire folders were empty. Messages vanished without a trace, as if someone had quietly reached into their account and erased pieces of their life. The glitch, which surfaced sporadically over the years, was traced to rare syncing errors between Gmail servers and offline storage in certain devices or mail clients. When the local copy conflicted with the server copy in just the wrong way, Gmail could mistakenly treat the local absence of emails as the true state and obediently delete the originals from the cloud to match it. To the system, it was just following instructions. To the user, it was a sudden, invisible heist. What made it so jarring wasn't just the loss itself, it was the helplessness. The deletion often happened silently, without warning, leaving no chance to stop it in progress. Recovery was sometimes possible through backups or Google support teams, but not always. And when the emails were gone, they were gone. Entire chains of memories, proof, and history dissolving into nothing. For those affected, opening their inbox afterward felt different, less like a reliable vault and more like a fragile container balanced on unseen code. The glitch revealed a sobering truth about the digital age. The things we trust most to preserve our lives aren't carved in stone. They're written in code, and code can forget you. Facebook Year in Review Bug. The Facebook Year in Review bug was a brutal collision between cheerful automation and the raw edges of human grief. In 2014, Facebook rolled out a feature designed to celebrate the past 12 months of a user's life. It automatically pulled their most popular photos and posts into a brightly decorated slideshow, topped with a cheery message, "It's been a great year. Thanks for being a part of it." For many, it worked exactly as intended, a sentimental highlight reel to share with friends. But for others, it was a digital gut punch. The algorithm had no understanding of context, no awareness of pain. It simply selected content that had received the most engagement, whether that was the birth of a child or the funeral of one. People who had lost loved ones, endured divorces, suffered illnesses, or survived disasters opened their feeds to find these moments plastered with confetti, balloons, and a smiling cartoon character, urging them to celebrate. For those grieving, it felt like the platform was mocking their pain. The images were real, the events were real, but the framing, a bright, tone-deaf celebration, turned private wounds into something grotesquely public. The backlash was swift and deeply personal, with users sharing stories of how the feature had blindsided them, dragging them back into moments they were trying to heal from. The Year in Review bug wasn't a glitch in code, it was a glitch in empathy. It revealed how blindly we allow algorithms to curate our lives, trusting them to reflect our experiences without considering that joy and sorrow often live side by side. And when machines can't tell the difference, the results can cut far deeper than a simple software error. Twitter 2017 logout. The Twitter 2017 logout was a sudden, baffling glitch that yanked millions of users out of their accounts without warning, scattering confusion across one of the world's busiest social platforms. It happened on a quiet day in November. No big update, no scheduled downtime, when people everywhere began opening the app or site only to find themselves staring at the login screen. Timelines were gone, drafts were lost, and for those who didn't remember their passwords, the platform might as well have slammed its doors shut. Almost instantly, speculation spread faster than tweets themselves. Was it a hack, a security breach, a mass account wipe? People flooded other platforms to ask if anyone else had been kicked out, and the answer was yes. Everyone from casual users to journalists to celebrities. The timing was eerie. In a digital space where connection is constant, being suddenly cut off felt like stepping into a blackout with no explanation. Later, Twitter attributed the mass logout to a bug that had disrupted its session systems, forcing a security measure that logged users out globally. It wasn't malicious, they assured everyone, just an internal technical error. But the reassurance didn't erase the unease. For many, it was a jarring reminder of how fragile our online lives really are. Years of conversations, private messages, and carefully built communities are all stored on distant servers, accessible only so long as the system allows it. And on that day in 2017, a single glitch reminded millions that their digital identities could be snatched away in an instant, leaving nothing but a login box and the question of how much of you exists entirely in the cloud. YouTube 301 plus view freeze. For years, one of the strangest quirks of YouTube was the mysterious moment when a video's view count would climb, and then suddenly freeze at exactly 301 plus. No matter how popular the video was, no matter how many people were watching in real time, the number would stop there, the little plus taunting viewers as if the platform was hiding the truth. Sometimes it stayed frozen for hours, an eternity in internet time, before suddenly leaping forward again with thousands or even millions of views added in a single jump. Behind the scenes, the explanation was technical but oddly human in its intent. YouTube had built in a checkpoint to verify views beyond 300, ensuring they were legitimate and not the result of bots, spam, or automated refresh scripts. When the counter hit 301, the system paused, sent the data for validation, and only after confirming authenticity would it update the number. But to the casual observer, it felt almost supernatural, a digital superstition, as if 301 was some sacred threshold that videos had to earn their way past. For creators, the freeze could be both thrilling and agonizing. It meant the video was blowing up, attracting enough attention to trigger the safeguard. But it also meant the momentum, at least in public perception, had stalled. Viewers speculated wildly in comment sections, spinning theories about secret algorithms, shadow bans, or conspiracies to manipulate trending pages. The 301 plus freeze eventually vanished as YouTube refined its systems, but for those who remember it, that strange number is burned into memory. It was a rare moment when the hidden machinery of the internet briefly revealed itself, and for a few hours, every frozen counter felt like a signal that something big was happening behind the curtain. Reddit shadow ban confusion. The Reddit shadow ban is a uniquely disorienting kind of digital exile, one where you're still speaking, but no one can hear you. To the person banned, nothing looks wrong. They can log in, post, comment, and even see their contributions sitting there on the page, perfectly intact. But what they don't realize is that to everyone else, those posts are invisible, as if they were never made. The confusion comes from how quietly it happens. Unlike a normal ban, there's no flashing warning, no angry moderator message, no visible sign of punishment. You might spend hours debating, sharing advice, or telling stories, believing you're part of the conversation. But in reality, you're shouting into an empty void. Days or weeks later, you may notice the silence. No replies, no upvotes, no acknowledgement. Yet the posts still appear to you, mocking you with their false sense of presence. Originally, shadow bans were a moderation tool meant to deter spammers without alerting them, leaving them wasting effort on messages no one would ever see. But when applied to real users, accidentally or without explanation, the effect was deeply personal. People described feeling paranoid, even betrayed, as they realized they'd been effectively erased while still being allowed to exist. The emotional punch of a shadow ban isn't just the ban itself, it's the isolation, the slow dawning realization that you've been talking to a room that emptied out long ago. It forces you to confront a strange truth about online life. In the digital world, your voice can be taken away without you even knowing it, and sometimes the silence you hear isn't apathy, it's absence. Steam Linux wipe. The Steam Linux wipe is the kind of glitch that feels like a digital horror story, One mistaken command buried deep in the code with the power to erase everything. In 2015, a bug was discovered in the Steam client for Linux that, under the wrong circumstances, could delete an entire computer's file system. Not just your games, not just your save data, everything. The nightmare was triggered when the Steam directory, the folder where the program stores its files, was missing or misconfigured. Instead of gracefully reporting the error, the uninstall script interpreted this absence as permission to target the root directory of the operating system. In Linux is the heart of the machine. Erase it, and you erase the entire operating system, every file, every personal document, every piece of data you've ever stored. One wrong check, one absent folder, and the system would cheerfully proceed to wipe itself clean. For those who encountered it, the results were devastating. Years of work gone in minutes, with no way to recover unless backups existed. The chilling part was how silently it happened. You might start the process expecting a routine uninstall, only to realize too late that the machine you rely on had just gutted itself from the inside out. The Steam Linux wipe is remembered not just as a bug, but as a reminder of the sheer, merciless power hidden in code. Computers follow instructions without hesitation, without morality, without the slightest awareness of the damage they're inflicting. And in moments like this, you realize how fragile your digital world really is, balanced on a few lines of logic that, if written carelessly, can turn your trusted machine into its own executioner. Amazon price glitch. The Amazon price glitch is the kind of digital slip that turns the world's biggest marketplace into a surreal bargain bin, if only for a fleeting, chaotic moment. One December night in 2014, shoppers noticed something impossible. High-end electronics, furniture, clothing, and countless other products were listed for just 0.01 in the UK. Items that normally cost hundreds, even thousands, were suddenly cheaper than a stick of gum. Word spread instantly through deal forums and social media. People scrambled to fill their carts, rushing through checkouts in disbelief, hearts pounding at the thought of getting a brand new TV or DSLR camera for pennies. For a few wild hours, Amazon's normally precise pricing system seemed to have torn itself apart, and everything was up for grabs. The cause was traced back to a third-party repricing tool, software used by many sellers to automatically adjust prices in response to competitors. A flaw in the code caused the system to drop prices to the minimum allowed, which for some sellers was set at 1 cent. Amazon processed the orders instantly, meaning that even after the glitch was caught, the damage was done. For customers, it felt like winning the lottery. For many small businesses, it was ruinous. Hundreds of orders shipped at massive losses, wiping out profits and in some cases threatening survival. While Amazon later tried to work with affected sellers, the incident left a bitter taste. It was more than just a funny pricing bug. It was a rare glimpse at how quickly the carefully balanced algorithms that run our digital marketplaces can turn against their creators, collapsing order into chaos in the time it takes to refresh a page. Best Buy price reversal. The Best Buy price reversal glitch was the kind of retail anomaly that turned ordinary transactions into moments of disbelief. Shoppers expecting a routine refund or price adjustment suddenly found the process playing out in reverse, money flowing out of their accounts instead of back in. It happened quietly, almost invisibly, until customers checked their statements and saw the shock. Instead of being credited, they'd been charged again, sometimes for the full amount of the original purchase. The glitch often occurred during returns or exchanges, when the store's point-of-sale system misinterpreted a refund request as a purchase. In some cases, the error stemmed from incorrect transaction codes sent through the payment processor, while in others, a simple input mistake at the register triggered a chain of automated miscalculations. On the customer's receipt, everything might look normal. until the bank records told a different story. For those caught in it, the experience was jarring. You hand over an item you no longer want, expecting your account to grow a little healthier, and instead, it shrinks further. The moment of discovery brings a wave of disbelief, quickly followed by frustration and, for some, panic, especially when the duplicate charge pushes their balance into the red or racks up overdraft fees. While the company would eventually correct the error, the damage was already done in those tense, confusing hours or days before resolution. It was a reminder that even the most mundane, automated transactions aren't immune to sudden, inexplicable reversals. In a world where digital payments are supposed to be instant and precise, this glitch exposed how fragile that trust really is and how quickly the system can turn against you with the flick of an unseen switch. Walmart PlayStation listing. The Walmart PlayStation listing glitch was one of those surreal online shopping moments where reality bends just enough to make you question if you're looking at a bargain or a mistake. Shoppers browsing Walmart's website suddenly found PlayStation consoles, normally hundreds of dollars, listed at shockingly low prices, in some cases under $100. For gamers, it felt like stumbling onto buried treasure, the kind of once-in-a-lifetime deal you'd brag about forever if you managed to snag it. Word spread fast. Screenshots flew across Twitter, Reddit, and gaming forums, each one showing the impossible price tag. People scrambled to click Add to Cart, their hands shaking as they imagined unboxing a brand new console for a fraction of the cost. Some went further, ordering multiples, hoping to flip them for profit. For a few intoxicating hours, it was chaos, carts filling, orders confirming, dreams of cheap gaming hardware taking root. Then came the crash back to reality. Walmart quietly began canceling orders, citing a technical error in their system. No consoles shipped, no miraculous deals honored, just a flood of refund notices and an unspoken apology. For those caught up in it, the disappointment was sharp, not just because they didn't get the console, but because they'd felt the rush of having beaten the system, only to watch it slip away. Incidents like this live on as modern folk tales of the internet age, stories of glitches that briefly tore a hole in the fabric of retail logic, letting people glimpse an alternate world where the impossible price is real. And for a short, thrilling moment, it was. Airline fare glitches. Airline fare glitches are the fleeting, almost mythical moments when the rigid, expensive world of air travel suddenly breaks, when a ticket that should cost thousands appears online for a fraction of the price, or even for free. These aren't sales, they're mistakes, cracks in the system where the math slips and the rules of the industry collapse for a few intoxicating hours. They can happen for many reasons: a missing zero in a fare database, a currency conversion error, a misplaced decimal, or a glitch in how two booking systems communicate. Sometimes it's human error. A weary employee miskeys a value. Other times, it's pure automation chaos, when algorithms feed each other wrong data until reality itself seems to bend. Suddenly, a first-class ticket from New York to Tokyo is listed for $50. A round-the-world itinerary costs less than dinner. When these glitches surface, they spread through travel forums and social media at lightning speed. People drop everything to book, hearts pounding as they enter payment details, praying the airline honors the price before it's fixed. For those lucky enough to get confirmed tickets, it feels like beating the system, like stealing a piece of luxury that was never meant for them. But there's always an edge of tension. Will the airline cancel the ticket, citing error, or will they begrudgingly honor it, swallowing the loss? Fare glitches exist in that strange space between mistake and opportunity, where a brief, chaotic alignment of data turns the cold precision of the aviation industry into a gambler's jackpot. And if you've ever caught one, you know, the thrill isn't just in the travel, it's in knowing you slipped through a doorway that wasn't supposed to be open at all. Google Maps Navigation Loop. The Google Maps navigation loop is a maddening and almost surreal glitch that traps travelers in a digital maze, sending them in endless circles no matter how closely they follow the instructions. It usually begins innocently. You're in an unfamiliar area, trusting your phone to guide you, when the voice tells you to turn left or make a U-turn, leading you back to where you started. The map updates, recalculates, and then gives the same instruction again. What starts as mild confusion quickly turns into frustration, then unease. You pass the same landmarks over and over: a gas station, a park, a strangely familiar row of houses, each time hoping this will be the turn that finally frees you. But the route keeps folding back in on itself, like you're caught inside some invisible loop only your GPS can see. Technically, the cause can be anything from poor satellite reception and outdated map data to GPS drift caused by tall buildings, tunnels, or atmospheric interference. The app tries to snap your location to the nearest road, but if that reading is wrong, the guidance spirals into a self-perpetuating cycle. The unsettling part isn't just the wasted time, it's the way the glitch bends your perception of space. In that moment, the map becomes less of a tool and more of a trap. Its calm, confident voice luring you deeper into a route that has no exit. For some, it becomes more than a technical hiccup. It's a strange, almost dreamlike feeling that you've slipped into a corner of reality where the rules are broken, and no matter how far you drive, you'll always end up right back where you started. Waze Teleport. The Waze Teleport glitch is one of those surreal moments when a navigation app stops guiding you through reality and instead seems to rip you out of it. You're driving along, watching your route unfold on the screen, when suddenly, without warning, your location icon jumps miles away in an instant. 1 second you're on Main Street, the next you're in the middle of a lake, on the wrong side of the city, or dropped into an empty stretch of countryside you've never seen before. It happens when GPS data falters, signals bouncing between satellites, being blocked by tall buildings, or scrambled by interference, and the app tries to guess your position based on flawed information. Waze, like other navigation systems, uses these guesses to keep your dot moving smoothly, but when those guesses are wildly wrong, the result feels like a digital wormhole. For drivers, the effect can be disorienting, even dangerous. The app may suddenly reroute you from this phantom location, sending you down streets you're nowhere near, recalculating again and again in a loop of confusion. Passengers laugh nervously, but the driver feels the unease. If the system can lose you so completely, how much can you trust it to guide you back? What makes the Waze Teleport especially eerie is how sudden and absolute it feels. There's no fade, no warning, just the quiet, jarring sensation that the world's most certain digital tether, your real-time location, has been severed. For a few seconds, it's as if the map is showing not where you are, but where you might be in some other version of events, before snapping you back to the road you never truly left. Tinder Invisible Match Bug. The Tinder Invisible Match bug was the dating app equivalent of seeing a door swing open to a perfect moment, only for it to slam shut before you could step through. Users would receive that tiny dopamine surge when the app announced a new match, their heart leaping at the possibility of connection. The name, the profile picture, the little promise of "you both liked each other" would flash across the screen, and then, in an instant, it was gone. The match wouldn't appear in the chat list. Searching for it was impossible. Sometimes it reappeared days later. Sometimes it was lost forever, leaving only the ghost of a possibility in the user's mind. For those on the receiving end, it felt less like a technical hiccup and more like a cruel joke, a glitch that dangled a connection just long enough to make you want it. The cause was traced to syncing errors between Tinder's servers and the user's device. When the timing was off, the match notification could trigger, before the server had securely saved the connection, causing it to vanish. To the system, it was just a transaction that failed to finalize. To the human, it was the erasure of a chance that might have changed their life. The emotional sting of the invisible match bug came from what it implied, that somewhere out there was a person who wanted to meet you, and now you might never find them again. It was a fleeting glimpse of parallel lives brushing against each other, only to slide apart before either could take a step toward the other. Snapchat time travel. Snapchat time travel is the unsettling glitch where your carefully ordered timeline shatters and memories appear in the wrong place, photos and videos jumping backward or forward in time, as if reality itself has been shuffled. You open the app expecting to see the present, but instead you're confronted with something older, sometimes years old, suddenly injected into today's feed. It can be a harmless throwback or a gut punch. For some, it's a photo from a vacation that ended long ago, resurfacing without warning. For others, it's far more personal, an image tied to a breakup, a death, a friendship that's no longer whole, slipping into the now like a ghost. There's no cue, no warning, no on this day framing to soften the blow. It's just there, raw and immediate, as if the past has kicked down the door and walked right in. The glitch is usually blamed on syncing issues, corrupted metadata, or cloud storage hiccups that confuse the file's original date. Snapchat's algorithm reads the wrong timestamp, and suddenly your 2019 is bleeding into 2025. But knowing the technical reason doesn't dull the emotional sting. When it happens, the effect is jarring. Time feels less like a straight line and more like a deck of cards someone just tossed into the air. For a moment, you're not in the present anymore. You're back in that captured second, breathing the same air, feeling the same emotions you thought you'd left behind. And then you're yanked out again, left wondering how much of your digital life is really locked in place and how easily the past can slip its chains to find you. Zoom face swap. The zoom face swap glitch is one of those deeply unsettling moments where technology crosses the line from helpful to eerie, replacing your own face or someone else's with the wrong one in real time. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it feels like a tear in the fabric of digital reality. You could be in the middle of a work meeting, a virtual class, or even a casual chat when suddenly the video feed shifts and your face is gone, replaced by the image of another participant, or warped into a strange, uncanny hybrid of the two. It's usually the result of a mix-up in Zoom's video compression and background processing algorithms, sometimes triggered by poor internet stability or high CPU load. Faces are tracked as a set of points and textures, and when data packets get scrambled, the wrong set can be overlaid on the wrong person. The result can be comical, like wearing someone else's head as a mask, or deeply disturbing, especially when the swap is seamless enough to make you second-guess what you're seeing. The first reaction is often laughter, but the unease comes after. There's something jarring about seeing your own expression mirrored back at you from another person's body, or watching someone speak with your mouth. It blurs the boundaries of identity in a way that feels almost personal, even though it's just a glitch. In that moment, the video call becomes less like a neutral window and more like a shifting digital hallucination, a reminder that what we see on our screens isn't reality itself, but a fragile stream of data that can be bent, broken, and rearranged in ways we might not notice until it's already happened. MS Word Clippy. Clippy, the infamous animated paperclip from Microsoft Word, was meant to be a friendly digital assistant, a cheerful helper ready to guide you through the mysteries of word processing. Instead, it became one of the most notorious and oddly unsettling glitches in the history of user experience design. It wasn't that Clippy was broken in the traditional sense, it was that it behaved in ways so intrusive, so tone-deaf to the user's actual needs that it felt almost alive in the worst possible way. You'd be in the middle of crafting a letter, concentrating on your words, when suddenly Clippy would pop up with its wide, unblinking eyes and a chipper, "It looks like you're writing a letter. Would you like help with that?" The problem was, Clippy wasn't just wrong sometimes. It was wrong often, interrupting work to offer irrelevant or redundant suggestions. It had a habit of appearing at the wrong moment, suggesting fixes you didn't need, and lingering as if waiting for your approval, like an over-eager intern you couldn't fire. The glitch-like feeling came from how aggressively Clippy forced itself into the flow of work. It didn't just offer advice. It hijacked your attention, pulling focus away from the task at hand. Sometimes it even reappeared after you'd told it to go away, as if it hadn't quite learned the concept of no. For some, Clippy became almost uncanny, a digital character that seemed to watch, judge, and pester with a persistence that felt less like helpful AI and more like a clingy ghost in the machine. It was a reminder that technology, no matter how friendly its face, can feel intrusive and alien when it doesn't understand when to simply stay silent. Windows 98 Crash Live. The Windows 98 crash live on stage is one of the most infamous tech embarrassments ever broadcast, a moment where the unstoppable march of innovation tripped over its own shoelaces in front of the world. It happened at Comdex in 1998 during a high-profile Microsoft presentation meant to showcase the stability and features of the new operating system. Bill Gates himself was on stage, smiling as a fellow presenter prepared to demonstrate how easy it was to plug in new hardware using Windows plug-and-play technology. The presenter inserted a scanner into the computer's port. For a few seconds, everything was fine, until the screen froze, flickered, and collapsed into the dreaded blue expanse of the blue screen of death. Lines of cryptic white error code filled the display as the audience gasped, laughed, and applauded in equal parts disbelief and amusement. On stage, Gates chuckled, deflecting with a quip. "That must be why we're not shipping Windows 98 yet." Behind the humor was a gut punch to the product's image. This was supposed to be a meticulously rehearsed showcase, the kind of moment designed to inspire confidence in the technology. Instead, it revealed just how fragile even the most polished systems can be, how a single hardware interaction could bring the entire operating system to its knees. For viewers, it was oddly thrilling. There was something human about watching a billion-dollar company's pride glitch out in real time, proof that no matter how much power or polish a tech giant projects, their creations can still collapse with one wrong move. And in that moment, Windows 98's grand unveiling became an unplanned lesson in humility. iPhone alarm fail. The iPhone alarm fail is the kind of glitch that feels harmless until it hits you at the worst possible moment, when you wake up in the morning and realize the alarm you trusted never made a sound. For some, it's happened on an ordinary weekday, turning a normal morning into a frantic scramble. For others, it's struck on the day of a flight, an exam, or an important meeting where every lost minute carries weight. The bug has surfaced in different forms over the years. Sometimes it's tied to daylight saving time shifts, when the phone's clock adjusts, but the alarm logic lags behind, leaving it stuck in silence. Other times, it's an iOS update introducing a small but devastating error in how alarms are stored or triggered. And occasionally, the issue seems almost supernatural. Alarms set correctly, volume up, do not disturb off, yet they simply never go off. What makes it infuriating is the betrayal of trust. Smartphones have become the bedrock of our daily schedules, the silent guardians of our mornings. When that system fails, the consequences ripple outward: missed opportunities, broken commitments, and the gnawing awareness that something so small can so easily derail your life. For those who've experienced it, there's a specific kind of dread in waking up without the alarm's familiar chime. It's the disorienting rush of realizing you've already lost the day's first battle, not to your own laziness, but to an invisible flaw in the device you depend on most. And from then on, even if the alarm works, you can't help but wonder each night, will it actually wake me tomorrow? Apple Go to Fail. The Apple Go to Fail bug was a single repeated line of code that quietly unraveled the security of millions of devices, proof that sometimes the tiniest human mistake can open the biggest doors for disaster. Discovered in 2014, the flaw lived deep inside the Secure Transport Library, the code responsible for verifying SSL/TLS certificates. In simple terms, this is what keeps your iPhone, iPad, or Mac from sending sensitive information like passwords, banking details, and private messages to imposters pretending to be trusted websites. The error was almost absurd in its simplicity. Two identical go-to-fail statements stacked one after the other. This redundancy meant that the program would prematurely skip over a critical part of the verification process. As a result, a malicious attacker could intercept your connection and make it appear perfectly legitimate, all without you ever knowing. For years, the bug sat quietly in Apple's software, affecting iOS devices and later being found in OS X as well. There were no obvious symptoms, no crashes or warning signs, just the silent removal of a crucial lock on the digital doors millions assumed were sealed shut. When the flaw became public, the reaction was a mix of disbelief and unease. How could a single line of code, written and reviewed by professionals, survive in the wild for so long? The name Go-To-Fail became both a technical punchline and a cautionary tale, a reminder that in a world built on trust in code, even the smallest oversight can ripple outward, leaving everything it touches vulnerable. And the most chilling part? You'd never have known it was there until someone decided to use it. Safari Autofill Leak. The Safari Autofill Leak was a quiet but alarming glitch that turned one of the browser's most convenient features into a hidden vulnerability. Autofill was designed to save time, instantly populating forms with stored personal information, names, addresses, phone numbers, even credit card details, whenever you visited a familiar input field. But a flaw in the system meant that malicious websites could quietly harvest that data without you ever realizing it had been given away. The exploit worked by hiding multiple, invisible fields on a web page beyond the single visible box you thought you were filling in. When Safari's autofill kicked in to complete the obvious field, say your name, it also obediently filled in the invisible ones with your email, home address, phone number, and more. To you, nothing seemed amiss. You saw only the form you intended to complete, but to the attacker's server, all those details were quietly sent in the background, as easily as if you'd typed them yourself. What made the glitch feel especially sinister was its invisibility. There was no pop-up warning, no suspicious screen flicker, just a smooth, normal browsing experience that masked the theft unfolding beneath the surface. People trust autofill because it feels mechanical, predictable, and entirely under their control. This flaw shattered that trust, revealing how easily automation can be bent against you. The unsettling part wasn't just the theft itself, it was the realization that convenience had lulled people into lowering their guard. The very feature designed to save time had become a silent accomplice, offering up private details to strangers with a single innocent click. It was a reminder that in the digital world, the smoothest experiences can hide the sharpest edges. Chrome Infinite Tabs. The Chrome Infinite Tabs glitch was like watching a machine slip into madness. Your browser, the tool you rely on for work, school, and life, suddenly deciding it will never stop opening new windows. It would start innocently enough. You'd click a link, expecting a single new tab, but instead, 2 would open, then 4, then 8. Within seconds, Chrome would be spawning an unstoppable cascade of tabs, each one duplicating the last. Your screen filling like a flood you couldn't shut off. The sound of your computer's fans would kick up, the processor straining under the sudden exponential workload. You'd scramble to close them, but every time you killed one, another would appear, faster and faster, until the browser was nearly unusable. Some people yanked the power cord, others sat frozen, watching the digital avalanche overtake their workspace. The cause could be anything from a rogue website's runaway script to a malicious extension or a glitch in Chrome's own code. It was absurd, but it was also unnerving, proof that the smallest cracks in software logic can spiral into chaos in seconds. A single misbehaving function could turn a tool of productivity into a self-replicating parasite, consuming your attention, your memory, and sometimes your entire machine's stability. For those who experienced it, the memory lingers like a tech nightmare, that helpless feeling as the tabs multiplied beyond control, your own browser turning against you. It was a reminder that even the most stable, trusted apps can, under the right conditions, cross the line from orderly assistant to relentless runaway machine. Uber Phantom Surge. The Uber Phantom Surge is a glitch that turns the invisible gears of ride-hailing into something manipulative, almost predatory. You open the app, ready to book a ride, and are hit with the warning. Fares are currently higher due to increased demand. The price surges, sometimes doubling or tripling, a countdown ticking in the corner to pressure your decision. It feels urgent, real, until the demand suddenly vanishes the moment you wait a few minutes or refresh. This phenomenon, sometimes blamed on software errors or location data hiccups, creates the illusion of scarcity. The app might misread demand due to GPS drift, slow driver updates, or temporary server lag, flagging your area as hot when it's actually quiet. But for riders, it's indistinguishable from intentional manipulation, especially when it happens repeatedly in areas where no extra traffic, events, or weather would justify the spike. The effect is psychological as much as financial. Surge pricing works by triggering fear of loss. You imagine drivers disappearing, prices rising further, and your plans falling apart if you don't act now. A phantom surge exploits that fear without cause, convincing you to pay more for no real reason. What makes it unsettling isn't just the extra cost. It's the glimpse at how algorithms can quietly distort your sense of reality. If the app can make you believe demand exists when it doesn't, what else can it make you believe? And in those moments, staring at the surging price and ticking clock, you can't help but wonder if you're seeing a glitch or the system working exactly as someone intended. Lyft ghost cars. Lyft ghost cars are one of those strange, frustrating glitches that make you question whether the map on your phone is showing reality or some uncanny parallel version of it. You open the app, request a ride, and instantly see a cluster of nearby drivers represented by little car icons drifting across the map. They're close, almost right around the corner. You watch them move and then realize something's wrong. They never actually get any closer. Sometimes the ghost cars seem to circle endlessly without ever arriving. Other times, they vanish entirely, replaced by a "no drivers available" message. In reality, those cars were never there at all. The app's location data, fed by GPS signals, network latency, and predictive algorithms, has created phantom drivers, placeholders meant to give you the impression of availability. Officially, glitches like this are often blamed on poor GPS accuracy, outdated map tiles, or syncing delays between drivers' devices and the Lyft servers. But for riders watching those icons slide across the screen, the effect can feel oddly deceptive, like being lured into waiting for something that doesn't exist. There's an almost psychological sting to it. You think help is moments away, but it's only a digital mirage. In busy cities late at night or in unfamiliar neighborhoods, that false promise can be more than annoying. It can feel unsettling, even a little desperate. The ghost cars come and go without explanation. leaving you staring at a map that suddenly feels less like a live feed of the real world and more like a simulation, one that's happy to show you what you want to see, even if it isn't there at all. Weather app apocalypse. The weather app apocalypse glitch was one of those moments when a tiny flaw in code created a window into a surreal, almost apocalyptic alternate reality. Users opened their weather apps expecting the usual forecast, partly cloudy, a chance of rain, maybe a heat wave, only to be met with numbers and warnings so extreme they seemed ripped from the end of the world. Temperatures in the thousands of degrees, wind speeds faster than sound, air quality readings that implied no living thing could survive outside. For a moment, the line between bug and omen blurred. The glitch usually stemmed from faulty data feeds, malfunctioning weather stations sending corrupt numbers, or misinterpretation of units during data conversion. A misplaced decimal could transform a balmy 25-degree day into a searing 2,500-degree death zone. Other times, empty or broken data fields defaulted to absurd extremes, which the app dutifully displayed without question. For those who saw it, the emotional jolt was immediate. The human brain instinctively reacts to danger signals, and these numbers screamed catastrophe. Social media would light up with screenshots, jokes, and nervous speculation, but beneath the humor was a strange unease. What if one day such readings weren't a mistake? Part of what made the glitch so striking was the visual authority of the apps themselves. They are sleek, precise, and trusted. When they suddenly predict planetary annihilation, even for a split second, it undermines that trust and leaves you with a lingering sense of fragility. It's a reminder that the calm, orderly interface we rely on for daily truth is only as stable as the invisible machinery behind it, and that machinery can falter, turning a sunny day into the end of the world with a single corrupted number. Fitbit step spikes. The Fitbit step spikes glitch was a quiet little miracle for some and a maddening mystery for others. A sudden, inexplicable surge in your daily step count without you actually moving. One moment, your watch might read a modest few thousand steps. The next, it's leaping by hundreds or even thousands in seconds, as if you just sprinted across town while sitting perfectly still. For some, it felt like a harmless bonus, padding their fitness goals and giving them a dopamine hit of achievement. But for others, especially those training seriously or tracking health metrics, it was infuriating. The inflated numbers warped workout logs, ruined progress charts, and made it impossible to trust the data that the device was built to measure. The cause often came down to sensitivity in the accelerometer, the tiny motion sensor inside the device. Sudden jolts, vibrations, or repetitive non-walking movements could trick the Fitbit into counting phantom steps. Riding in a car over a bumpy road, washing dishes, even brushing your teeth could send the numbers climbing. In rarer cases, firmware glitches or syncing errors would dump a backlog of recorded steps all at once, creating dramatic, unrealistic spikes. The emotional reaction was mixed. Some laughed it off, enjoying their magic marathons. Others felt betrayed, realizing their carefully curated streaks or records might be built on false data. At its core, the Fitbit step spike glitch was a reminder that even in the age of smart devices, the numbers we trust to define our health and progress are still vulnerable to error, and that sometimes your own body's story is more honest than the stats on your wrist. Strava heat map leak. The Strava heat map leak was a chilling reminder that even the most ordinary data can reveal secrets you were never meant to see. In 2018, Strava, a popular fitness tracking app, proudly released a global heat map showing billions of user activity points from running, cycling, and walking routes. The map glowed with vibrant lines, tracing the movement patterns of athletes all over the world. At first glance, it was a harmless, even beautiful visualization of human activity. But then people looked closer. In bustling cities, The glowing trails followed public roads and parks, no surprise there, but in remote parts of Afghanistan, Syria, and other conflict zones, strange clusters of bright lines emerged, circling inside otherwise empty desert landscapes. They weren't random. They matched the layouts of military bases. Strava users stationed there, soldiers, contractors, had been tracking their workouts, unknowingly revealing the exact location, size, and internal pathways of classified facilities. These weren't just dots on a map. The routes revealed habitual patterns, where soldiers slept, where they gathered, where patrols began and ended. Anyone with an internet connection could zoom in and see movements in detail, building a picture of daily operations without ever setting foot in the area. The leak wasn't a hack. It was the consequence of data shared too freely, made public without considering who might be looking. And that's what made it so unsettling. The danger didn't come from stolen secrets, but from information willingly given, compiled, and displayed. In an instant, a harmless jog around base became a breadcrumb trail for anyone who knew how to follow the glow. Smart fridge crash. A smart fridge crash is the moment your sleek, Wi-Fi connected kitchen marvel goes from futuristic convenience to silent, unresponsive slab, reminding you that even the most advanced appliances are still just computers waiting to fail. It can happen without warning. 1 minute you're checking the built-in touchscreen for recipes, weather updates, or grocery lists synced from your phone, and the next, the display freezes mid-swipe. The clock stops ticking. The screen no longer responds. The quiet hum of the fridge continues, but its smart brain has gone dark. For some, the crash comes with flickers of garbled text or glitching icons before the interface locks up entirely. Others find the screen frozen on a half-loaded web page, or worse, an empty black panel reflecting their own frustrated face. While the cooling system might still work, the features that justified its high price, the ones that promised to make daily life smoother, are suddenly gone. The cause can be anything from a software update gone wrong to corrupted system files or network miscommunication. Like any computer, the fridge's operating system can choke on bugs, memory overload, or failed processes. But unlike a laptop or phone, rebooting isn't always simple. You may need to dig through hidden settings, cut power entirely, or call in a technician just to get the interface breathing again. What makes it so unsettling isn't just the inconvenience, but the vulnerability it reveals. This is the heart of your kitchen, a machine meant to preserve life's essentials, and it's buckled under the weight of its own upgrades. In that frozen screen, you see the trade-off of modern living. Even the food in your home now depends on code that can and will eventually fail. Tesla Christmas mode stuck. Tesla's Christmas mode was designed as a whimsical Easter egg, a hidden feature that transformed the sleek electric car into a rolling holiday spectacle. With a press of a button, the headlights danced in sync with festive music. Doors opened and closed like choreographed limbs, and the car's speakers blasted seasonal tunes into the winter air. It was playful, harmless, and purely for show until the glitch hit. For some unlucky owners, activating Christmas mode turned into a trap. Once the sequence started, the car refused to exit the performance. Music blared on loop, lights flashed in the dark, and the falcon wing doors continued to open and close as if the car had taken on a mind of its own. Attempts to disable the feature failed, controls became unresponsive, and restarting the vehicle sometimes only reset the routine to play again from the top. What made the glitch unsettling was how quickly a moment of joy could spiral into absurd chaos. Drivers found themselves stranded in parking lots, surrounded by flashing lights and blasting carols, attracting the stares of amused strangers. The situation was comedic, but underneath the humor was a faint edge of dread, the unsettling realization that a luxury vehicle worth tens of thousands of dollars had been hijacked by its own party trick. The stuck mode wasn't just a reminder of the risk of software bugs, it was a glimpse into the peculiar vulnerability of modern smart machines. As cars become more like computers, glitches become less about mechanical failures and more about losing control to lines of code. And in this case, that code wanted nothing more than to keep celebrating, whether you liked it or not. Self-checkout misscan. The self-checkout misscan glitch is the kind of small, everyday disruption that can swing from mildly funny to deeply frustrating in seconds. You're at the machine scanning items with the rhythmic confidence of someone who's done it 100 times. The screen beeps in acknowledgement, and you place the item in the bagging area, only for the system to tell you it's not there. Or worse, it registers something entirely different. A loaf of bread becomes a high-priced gadget, or a single apple suddenly rings up as 20 pounds of produce. Sometimes the glitch is harmless, even in your favor. An item scans for far less than it should, tempting you to just smile and move on. Other times, it's a bureaucratic nightmare. The machine locks, the red light flashes, and a store employee appears to clear the error, their eyes scanning you as if you might be trying to pull something. Each repeat makes the line behind you longer, the atmosphere more tense, your cheeks warmer under the impatient stares of strangers. Causes range from barcode misreads and sensor malfunctions to subtle software bugs in the checkout system. Bagging area weight sensors can be notoriously sensitive, throwing errors if they detect a fraction more or less than expected, while misaligned barcodes can fool the scanner into calling up the wrong product entirely. The emotional sting comes from how quickly the machine can turn on you. In the span of a second, you go from feeling in control to standing frozen, caught between technology's convenience and its cold, rigid rules. And in that moment, it doesn't matter if you're innocent, because the system has already decided something's wrong. Coffee machine ERR12. The coffee machine ERR12 glitch is the kind of everyday malfunction that feels almost personal, an ordinary morning ritual collapsing into chaos with a single cryptic message. You stumble into the kitchen, half awake, craving that first hit of caffeine, only to be greeted by 2 words on the display: ERR12. No explanation, no manual on hand, just the machine's cold refusal to do the one thing it exists for. For some, it's a firmware hiccup, an electrical surge, or a corrupted sensor reading that confuses the internal logic. For others, it's a mechanical jam the machine mistakes for something catastrophic. The worst part is that it often strikes without warning. It worked perfectly yesterday, and now it's an unresponsive monument to your growing frustration. The moment is almost absurd in its intimacy. You're standing there in the early morning quiet, negotiating with a hunk of plastic and steel as though it might listen. You unplug it, plug it back in, jab at buttons, open compartments you've never looked at before, hoping for a sign of life. But the error persists, glaring at you like a locked door you don't have the key for. In that moment, the absence of coffee becomes more than inconvenience. It's a small rebellion by the machine against the order of your day. And it's here, in these tiny breakdowns, that technology reminds you it doesn't care about your schedule, your fatigue, or your needs. It will sit there, silent and stubborn, until you fix it, or until you surrender, staring at those 5 merciless characters and wondering how something so small could ruin your entire morning. Elevator skipping floors. An elevator skipping floors is one of those small, disquieting glitches that turns a routine ride into something quietly uncanny. You step inside, press your floor number, and watch the doors slide shut. The familiar hum of the motor begins. The soft flick of passing numbers lights up on the panel, until suddenly the floor you selected blinks past without stopping. Sometimes it races on to a higher level. Other times it bypasses several stops in a row before finally halting. And in that moment, you feel the faintest trace of unease, as if the machine has made a decision without you. The cause might be simple: a sensor misread, a faulty button contact, a software bug in the elevator's control system. In newer models, smart dispatch algorithms constantly calculate efficiency, rerouting trips to serve demand, but when they falter, the logic can appear erratic, almost willful. Older elevators might be plagued by worn relays or mechanical lag, letting momentum or miscalibration carry them right past the intended floor. But the strangeness isn't only in the mechanics, it's in the sensation of losing agency inside a sealed metal box. You are enclosed in a system you can't steer, trusting it to stop when and where you told it to. When it doesn't, there's a quiet spike of adrenaline, a flicker of thought that the machine is no longer entirely under human control. For a few seconds, suspended between where you meant to be and where you've ended up, the world outside the elevator's doors feels oddly altered, like you've been delivered somewhere you weren't meant to go.